Welcome to a special march again. We're gonna march same by the river to the sun, or we go to the mountain again. Which way should we change? Yesterday we went to the mountain. Tomorrow's Friday, so probably gonna go to the mountain, maybe change a little bit. Let's say, yeah. Which direction do we go? To the mountain we went yesterday. Should we still go today? You know, we go often to the mountain, celebrating today. Personal victory yesterday, broke a record, marching record, more than 9 hours of marching yesterday for 2025, and that is that rock and roll. And always gotta be a little bit of that grateful and gratitude with that, you know, because we commence hot day 4:04 p.m. so I don't want to do more than 5 hours today because I already feel it on to be filled in, but that's just something which of course we have to do. But yeah, I gotta commence with gratitude. Grateful, thankful for my rent's paid, electricity bills paid, got food and coffee, and that is just something which we have to do, you know. And we gotta get a little bit of that foundation here and drop a little of that liquid and drop some garbage and go and check out the little fridge there. Just had a good lunch. Late lunch. Thank you for the donations, all those who do the food security, you know. Think about the firefighters, plumbers, butchers, electricians, the welders, all those involved in the distribution, production of food. Gotta salute the firefighters, my anonymous friends. Celebrating today 8 years since I crossed Canada coast to coast in August 2017. I crossed with an anonymous friend Canada. We went in Vancouver, BC in 2017. I got the tickets, I'm auctioning them for $1 million, and I got, of course, the train tickets and the bus tickets, because we went by bus, Vancouver, British Columbia, and then by train we went to Halifax, Nova Scotia, and 3.5 days by train, and 25 hours and 44 minutes by. That was September 2017 to get to Halifax. 25 hours and 44 minutes by train. So I got both tickets and gotta find them, auctioning them for $1 million, because right now my only stress is financial. Money wise, I did my laundry, so when I get back I'm gonna get a little bit of that laundry back in the house. It's always getting it back in the house, and gotta be grateful, thankful for the laundry machine. Super important. Got a laundry machine and got not just the laundry machine, but also got the dryer. But of course it's summer, so I don't dry it. In the laundry machine. I dry it in the sun. 26 degrees today. Always for the butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, the firefighters, the electricians, and the plumbers, and all those, something we gotta get doing on that. You know, rock and roll, 24/7 for the plumbers and the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the electricians, all those involved in the protection, distribution of food. Food security starts with the farmers as we go, and that it is with that, and that's why we gotta get that rock and roll. Always for the Empire, the 10, the 50, and the 3, and got that backpack, got those red gloves, by which I have been able to continue to challenge Donald Trump. Thank you again to my anonymous friend for donating those red gloves, that RED. Auctioning the shirt, the pants, the underwear, the glasses, the hat, and the Habs hat, and to raise a little bit of funds, $1 million each. Gonna give 50% to my anonymous friend, and I got those red gloves in the backpack. But it's a Dragon versus Trump event, you know. Granddaddy Trump, you know, I would have voted for Biden or Kamala, but I'm a pro-labor and love universal revolutionary centrist, and I guess it's Democratic Republican, you know. Sometimes we make a little bit of compromises. As a pro-labor and love universal revolutionary centrist, which my centrism is North American centric, and for where we are today in terms of the world geopolitical events which have been unfolding. And of course, I am myself neurodivergent. I live with a condition called Asperger's, and also androgynous, pansexual. You get that 50-50. I'm part of the LGBTQ community. Financially stressed, but grateful, you know. And a lot of people are across Canada, United States, financially stressed. And I was a bit moody, but now I saw some youth smiling and getting a little bit of smile, and I guess the children gonna inherit the the children are gonna inherit the empire. And of course, sometimes when I'm moody, because I conquer being depressed and suicidal, I meditate, of course, on so much work and the truckers and all that's going on across the North American Collective. And see here, I got some bread. I think I'm gonna leave it for somebody else. Actually, I'm gonna take the bread, 50% off. That's a good bread. How much is 50%? If you got some other food there, but this 50% bread, so it costs $4.59. That means it's divided is $2.29 and 0.50, right? If that's the cost, because you calculate divided by 2 if it's 50%. And here sometimes you got another put where you can put some food, but sometimes you gotta put more than I take nowadays. To be honest, I wish I would put more than I take, but I guess this bread is something which I'm gonna. It says best before. It says that it was. Today we're the 21st, so 4 days ago on the 17th it was packed, so it's probably gonna be still good for 3 days. But it was in the fridge, so it's rock and roll, although 50% off, and it's 675 grams. So now we're gonna do a meditation on how much bread is there across North America, but Canada, United States. Estimation: Quebec, Canada, Montreal, from Hawk Island, Montreal. And of course there's different types of bread, right? Breads differ and not all breads are the same, so we got to take that into the components when we do the meditation. But nonetheless, it takes the wheat from the farmers, then it takes, of course, the barley or rye, whatever rye bread, barley bread, whatever the types of bread which we are. And of course I'm going to tie my hair, and then we're going to rock and roll in the sun as we go. And then once we reach the top of the mountain, I guess we can just sky it back. Maybe we're gonna go, should we go by the river? Sometimes we switch it up, we go by the river instead of that. And maybe this one should be one by the river. What do you say? To the mountain or to the river? To the mountain, by the river? To the mountain, because if I go by the river, I know that's gonna be more than 5 hours, because if I get that trajectory, unless we go by another route. But, let's go to the mountain, towards the sun in the mountain, and maybe take the more, quote-unquote, traditional route, I guess. Not really traditional in the sense that it is the route which I most often take to get to the mountain. Turn your heads left and right when you cross the street. So yeah, now I got a little bit of that bread, so thank you for the bread donation. And I wish I could fill that fridge up sometimes, just fill it up and put a lot of goods and just ready to enjoy for somebody else to enjoy it. And that's how I rock and roll with that. And yeah, thank you. I love bread. Is always something which I love to do. If I have a little bit of spread on it, a little butter on it, and a little salt, sometimes just a little tomato on it, and that is enough for me, of course, to enjoy it. In the fact being that it is, of course, something which we have to enjoy together, as being that we are human beings who are dependent. Everybody gotta eat, even Wall Street. I guess they got a few more minutes of buying, trading until 4:30 clock hits. Of course, if you make $1 million, give some charity. And I'm not totally selfish, but I would love to actually afford a massage therapy session, because I live a very physically active lifestyle, very physically active. A massage. I have been ever since 2017. So a massage therapy would actually be very convenient for me. Once a week, that would be good enough. Twice a week would be great. 3 times would be really, really good. And 4 times, I guess that would be kind of like heavens, With 4 massage therapy sessions, I will be like heaven on that. That will be something which for me would be very much heaven, like 4. That would be so good, and that was something which we're gonna have to do, and it's something which, of course, we gotta understand fully. When I spot the flag, I spot the flag. There it is. Spot the flag. I got mine tatted up. We began playing the spot the flag, and don't ask me when I got that flag tatted on my body, because I have trouble accessing my life memories prior to spring 2014. It's like a blackout of my life. It's a blackout of my memories. Symptoms, conditions of what's called RA, actually, retrograde amnesia. So I don't know if I was drinking a lot for a few years before spring 2014. If I was a junkie, was I a junkie? If I did lots of hard drugs, I don't know. I remember being attacked viciously by surprise. I gave myself a new deadline to go until September 11th. which is coming soon, right? It's only in a few days, September 11th. Yeah, shiny, shiny, shiny. September 11th. I myself to go to retrieve the archives of the Jewish General Hospital. I was attacked by surprise, vicious. I survived a vicious surprise attack. I hit my head on the concrete. Had a dislocated right arm, and I have plenty of scars on the body. And I was prescribed some medication. And I was bloodied up. I was bloodied up. And had a re-cracked. The doctors re-cracked went to the emergency room, re-cracked my arm. My right arm was dislocated. Although I was banged up on the left, but the dislocation occurred on the right arm, and the right arm and the shoulder. The right arm, the shoulder. I'm just gonna stop just to make sure that. You're welcome. The kid said thank you. I stopped because I had a big backpack, and I calculated the distance and the speed, and for the child's safety, I decided to just pause my steps because I'm getting marching steps, and I have Asperger's, so I have certain clumsiness sometimes, and that's why I decided to just stop and pause. And the little child said thank you, and that's it, because I'm in the public, so I got added responsibilities, duties, and obligations, so that's why I stopped my camera, because she was on the bike, and I calculated at her speed, and so that it was pedaling. And it's just aspiness, Aspie, sometimes we calculate distances, and times mathematical calculations sometimes they just pop into the brain, It's just how our brains are different. So if you don't know what Asperger's is, I'm going to discuss a little bit about it. So that is just the synthesis, and that was one of my experiences, being attacked by surprise. Survived a vicious surprise attack and hit my head, and was banged up, bloodied up, and right arm. Well, actually, the shoulder was dislocated. The right arm was almost like it was falling off. Slow down, buddy. Let the passengers, pay your cars. They're okay. Some are more expensive, but just let people pass, man. So you gotta turn your heads left and right. Cause I'm in the public, so I got added responsibilities, duties, and obligations, which I don't have, and you don't have if you stay home. So, especially when your cars vis-a-vis pedestrians, is something that you have to be aware of. There's more important the body. My body for me is worth. Hey, look at that, trillions, and bodies. Look at that. Those bees there. See, they're going in there. The bees. Look at that. What is bees? There's honey. Is there honey in there? I don't know. I love bees, but look, it's going in there. The bee. Look at that. There's bees there. What? They know I'm their friends. Bees. I love bees. But it's interesting that they're going in there. What interesting. Inside the cracks of the wall. Maybe they have a whole empire there, in the darkness, in the cracks of the wall, and then they come get some sun in the sun with the flowers. Rock and roll when the bees are. There's honey in the cracks, in the darkness of the being. Want to find some light from the tunnels. That's the darkness. Yeah, rock and roll. I can rock and roll every day. I sing rock and roll songs. I write rock and roll songs, and I'm an Aspie. I have Asperger's, but I'm also an artist, athlete, philosopher, independent geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, thinker, and strategist, and mystic. I believe in reincarnations. That's why I'm androgynous today, 50-50, because previous past times, in past lives, past incarnations were, I was born a man, a woman, a man, a woman, a woman, a man, a woman, a man, a woman, a man, a man, a woman. From ancient Egypt, I was the priestess who orated the great Erythrea to Lycurgus. I was the priestess who orated the great Erythrea to Lycurgus, and that's how we rock and roll it today, 50-50. And back to that. So I got to go retrieve the archives. Maybe it was 2014. Not sure exactly what date that was, because I said my memory, I have trouble accessing memory prior to about spring 2014. My life, I know I lived in a Côte de Neige, a very small underground type of basement. It was I always say I served my time. It was like a small prison cell. like a small prison cell type of prison cell, but it wasn't really a prison cell. But even it was so small and moldy, and of course there was lots of mold there, and of course there was a bathroom was so tiny, it was like half a bathroom. Really, they had no bathtub. It's really small, and even the kitchen was integrated in the room, so I had no separate kitchen. So it's literally a room and a stovetop, and where I could put my bed. Really small in the ground basement, and there was the bathtub was. There's no bathtub. There was a bathroom. There was no bathtub. I didn't even have a bathtub, and the shower was so small, like really tiny. I was crying in there, and I moved. I thought I moved in 2016, but it ends up that I moved in 2015. 2015. In 2015. That I moved in 2015. So, and my memory prior to spring 2014 is I've been on that blackout, you know. So that's just life, I guess. Sometimes these things happen, and you learn to live with them, and you know, even today's tough times. And I also live with a neurological mental divergent condition, which took me very much a long time to accept and integrate, because for more than 7, 8, 9 years about, when several individuals with some citizens, acquaintances and friends who made along the way have diagnosed me with Asperger's, you know. And said, you know, you're an Asperger, you have this condition called Asperger's, you know that, and you should know that you are different in such way, and that's why you see the world differently, and that's why your communication style sometimes may seem too a bit philosophical, intellectual, academic, or using these too sophisticated words, or repetition, or this clumsiness you have, and this obsession with certain subjects and topics because you have Asperger's. And said, well, no. I didn't want to accept it, you know, because that puts me in a frame of being different and part of this tiny minority until about 3.5 years ago, I would say. During COVID, I have accepted that I am different, and we actually just have trouble with certain things, you know. We have certain trouble with certain things you know. We just have, our brains are different, right? So we have certain difficulties with social interactions, and social communications can sometimes be more different and awkward, and we may not fully understand social norms and social protocols and these unwritten rules, you know. Sometimes it's more difficult for us to fully abide by and fully look at those beautiful, it's just gorgeous. I love flowers and yellow ones there. I love yellow flowers. Red is my favorite color, but when it comes to flowers, I just got a special thing for yellow. But these ones too are beautiful, and those one also, and red, of course, my favorite color, red, scarlet crimson. But here's the garden, which you can see. Beautiful garden. I have some experience in urban farming. I did it a few times, I believe 3 times. I believe I worked the soil, the ground, the soil, with doing all the labor at the micro farming level, because urban farming, basically it's the same principles with a small, big, medium, super large farming. Is the same principles that you have to operate by with the planting, the sowing, and then of course the harvesting. But I have experience in Montreal, Hawk Island, 2.5 million people here in Metropolis Island. I have experience with farming. Urban farming is a beautiful, these ones too, the yellow ones here, they're just nice. So Asperger's again, now I'm gonna go into the little bit of Asperger's. It took me a while to accept it, and finally I've accepted it. And of course I have pretty much not the symptoms, because it's not, don't use the word symptom, it's not an illness, Asperger's. So I prefer not to use the word symptom, but I use the word characteristics or traits. Aspie traits, Aspie characteristics, which can be odd, strange, bizarre, awkward, you know. Just we see the world differently, and we have these mutations of the brain. So these mutations of the brain, they're not beautiful yellow ones, those ones too there. So these mutations of the brain, they're not outwardly visible, protruding. Nice yellow ones, eh? Super nice. They're not protruding in the side. They're not protruding. You cannot visibly see them outside of the brain. You're not protruding outside in the cranium, in the head, you know, by visible, the naked eye, that is. But they're internal, small, at the micro nano level, just like transistors, microchips. They're very tiny, microscopic, nano, molecular level. And these mutations account for Asperger's, and of course Asperger's is inconclusive to what causes Asperger's. So it's either caused by hereditary, that is biological genetic factors, or it's caused by a sort of a combination of genetic and environmental factors. So the cause is inconclusive. The cause is inconclusive. We cannot say for sure what causes Asperger's, and it's not a big community. We're not a lot of Aspies in the world. We're less than 1%, about half of a percent, 0.44%, and it's always Aspies of the world unite. And we have our difficulties, challenges which we have, and because we see the world differently and we communicate sometimes differently. Sometimes we're direct and offensive, can be direct, and that's just how we are. Sometimes we can miss certain social nuances, certain jokes, comedy, humor we might not fully understand. Some of it, not all, and it varies from individual to individual. And things like, for example, I'll give you a concrete example, personal space. So I always have to check not to get too close to people. And Aspies, you know, if you're an Aspie, you know what I mean. The personal space, sometimes an Aspie might approach somebody, might get so close to somebody to the point of being super close, like really super close, you know, like just to the point that just an inch or 2, 3 inches, 4 inches, like very close to the face, almost close to the body, almost in contact to the body. You know, the personal space is difficult for Aspies. It's just, we have to work on it and take a space, and I do it often. Sometimes I just, it clicks. I'm too close. I take a step back. See, neurotypical, not an Aspie, back away. Take a step, take 2 steps, take 3 steps, takes 4 steps. 4 smaller ones, of course, or whatever the case may be. That is a characteristic, that is a trait. So that also, but also I understand that it can be intimidating, and somebody might feel not insecure or might feel uncomfortable, you know. This uncomfortableness, this insecurity, this so the personal space, which is a few feet, a meter and a half, depends, a few yards, if you want to put yards, feet, or meters, you know, that's just whatever you want to put the distance in it. I don't mind, either or for me works. But necessarily is a distance, you know. I would say, you know, sometimes maybe from that tile, from here, from this line to that line, you're there. But an Aspie might be like this close, you know, like close to the tree. This is, I guess that's a person, right? And you discuss about that distance, and then you have a discussion, you have a communication, or this distance is the normal. But an Aspie might be like this, close to you, to myself included, and then I have to back away because my brain starts telling me this is a neurotypical. You gotta distance yourself. Remember, personal space. It's a neurotypical world you live in. So I always have to remind myself that I live in the neurotypical world, and we have to build bridges, small bridges, medium bridges, large bridges, extra large bridges, extra large bridges, extra large bridges, extra large bridges, right? Extra large bridges. Whether that's exactly like those categories, it's just a representation of the bridges that need to be built, right? It's just a representation of the bridges that need to be built, right? But those bridges, of course, can vary. There can be a variance, you know, so that varies. But not just those 4, just like when you order coffee or fries, right? When you order coffee or fries, it asks you what size, then you say small or medium or large or extra large. So those are the 4 main categories. 4 main categories, of course, which you order. 4 main categories. Well, small, medium, large, or extra large. Usually the portions, the bigness, the size of fries or coffee size. Like when I went, I asked that day, it was the choice says which side and what size you want, size. So I said, what are the choices? And he said, you have small, you have medium, you have large or extra large. So there are 4, just like, so I said, okay, just large. So those are the same bridges in different sizes with different neurotypicals that we have to build, you know. So we also have to watch so that we don't stare too much at objects. But objects, I guess, it doesn't really matter that much, or at people. And another Aspie trait, which characteristically is when you're in the store, this might be an Aspie who does that. So we would take an object, for example, whatever an object, a can, a box, a can, or whatever the product produce is usually that has writings, inscriptions, and markings on it. So things such a can. And for years and years, even before the trade war, I always looked about where's the provenance, the country of origin, what's this produced, and other details. So an ASPE might bring the object so close to the, like just inspect it like this for like a minute, close to the face, you know, really close to the face, and stare at it like that and turn it and look at the details on it. So you might see somebody doing that, you might say, wow, what's going on there, you know? Like you might find that really, a neurotypical might find that extremely weird, extremely odd, extremely bizarre, extremely strange, you know? So that is what it is with that, and that was what it is with the strangeness. But we might, of course, look, and we might try to see if where the markings are. We might focus on certain details such as numbers or classifications, all the things that are marked. It might be of interest, that even numbers that are inconsequential to some people, you might not even care about certain numbers that exist. You know, when you look at a bar, or look at a chocolate bar or something like a whatever, just not chocolate bar, but it could be a box, it could be boxes, it could be whatever you buy in the supermarkets, imported or in local goods, variety. They all usually have different markings, you know, on it, and sometimes it's classifications, or sometimes it expresses not just necessarily classifications, but there's an expression of, look at that, isn't that nice? There might be quantity, there might be quality, there might be numbers which are only classifications for the industry itself, right? Whether it's in the food industry, soda industry, bar soap industry, that is hygienic products, you know, the classifications of the different industries which you have, whether consumable, durable goods, whether you have all the classifications by industry standards. So a number might mean that that's a certain industry standard, or it could mean that that's the product number on that specific day or week at that specific manufacturer. It could actually be also a number that you might see that might have 4 digits. If you see, for example, 0444, or you see 1984, let's say, that number actually 1984 might represent a manufacturing plant, right? Let's say, for example, that it could be, but we don't know because we're not owners, or we don't have shares in the corporations, or that it is. But if we would have shares, I guess somebody might know that that's exactly what that number means, that that specific bottle or bar of soap or chocolate bar, or for example, it could be a chocolate bar, bar of soap, it could be candy bars, it could be, of course, something else. It could be not just in those aspects or those items or goods. It could be things, of course, such as a bar of soap, you know, a bar of soap. But not just bar of soap, it could be anything. It could be, of course, for the bar of soap, of course, to get it on the go. And watch again, you gotta slow down a bit. Do your stop properly, with that. And it was a little bit miss of the stop, you know. That it is with that, and that's it is. Or it is for the go, you know. So that is something which we have to do. So, but it could be a chocolate bar, it could be a bar of soap, it could be just a can of goods. It could be, for example, beef. Canned beef, right? Canned beef, let's say. Any one of those 4 cans. And that number 1984, that number might represent, or 1996, it could be, or 1963, it could be 1947, 1904, 1984, 1978, 1989, 1989, whatever, just say 1984, it could be different 4 digits. That actual number might actually represent, somebody might know what that number could actually and potentially represent, that specific number represents where that specific bar of soap, can, or whatever good or item was manufactured at that specific plant, let's say somewhere in Canada or the United States, because that's what number is. And this big corporation has, let's say, I don't know, 44 or 40 or whatever the number, 22, 25, 11 plants across North America, and that number might actually represent that plant, or in Mexico where that, you know. So we wonder, and then an ASPE might go check that. It's just weird, it's just odd, it's just strange. But there's a purpose, if you will, to the madness in our brains, right? In how our brains computes and our brains understand and thinks about these things in how we interact with the world. So in the store, when you see somebody just checking an object, whether it's a bar soap, a chocolate bar, a box full of, let's say, candies, or a canned, it could be canned onions, canned tomatoes even, canned potatoes, canned beef, canned sausages, right? Any can which contains any sort of food, meat, dairy, eggs, whatever the case may be. It could be chocolate milk, it could be chocolate powder, right? That could be the number that represents the actual representation of the, exactly, the representation of that specific item, which is of course integral to do, and of course to get it done, you know. So that is just, of course, the aspiness, the aspi traits. So that is just the characteristics. Hi, what are you selling?
We're selling lemonade and brownies.
Lemonade, how much?
Lemonade is $2 and brownies $1.
Oh yeah?
Card and cash.
I don't know. I don't know if I have money. Let's see. You take donations?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because I don't think I have any more than that. Because your prices are a bit pricey for me right now. I think I might drop some change. Yeah, I'm just gonna give you some change, okay? That's
Thank
it.
you so much.
You're welcome. Oh, I dropped something. Bye bye, good luck. You're welcome. Yeah, it was a bit pricey for me. It was a bit pricey for me right now, but they made some lemonade. I wish I would have bought. Their joy, man, you know, that's important, you know, to support. I mean, I'm stressed. I don't know, maybe their financial situation is stressful, but I just made a donation, you know. So whatever the case may be. So an aspect characteristic would be, they were, you know, been out of the age there, maybe I would have asked some questions about the lemonade. Technical questions, I mean, because lemons, see? Where did those lemons come from exactly? Right, of course they can come from the United States, but in how much bulk, of course, there's a real number right now in terms of the quantity and the classification. And of course the classification, of course, which it is now, together, of course, that there's a certain amount of lemons now in the world. And of course, if you look on some lemons, sometimes they have exactly like I was mentioned, the country of origin or where they're from. And you can see also some numbers on the label. On the small, look in the stores, on the lemons in the stores, you might see a little lemon. It might have a small label, a small sticker, small print sticker, and there's some numbers on it. It might be some numbers, like for example 0156 or 1560 or 0333 or 0719 or 194, 184, 1984, 2007, all sorts of numbers, and that it could be a little standard for something, or it could be 3 digits. But that has a purpose of why that sticker, those numbers are there. It could be symbolizing for the internal corporation where those lemons were actually produced. Because we were discussing this topic. So this is just, this is aspiness. This is just aspiness, which aspi characteristics, we can be, it can be weird like that, odd, you know. So no longer we lose friends and we don't have lots of friends, you know. No longer we lose friends and we don't have lots of friends, because we can be weird, awkward, strange, bizarre, you know, bizarre, weird, awkward, strange. Those are appellations for aspiness, but we have to build the bridges. Whether small, medium, large, extra large, where we build small bridges, medium-sized bridges, extra large bridges, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, definitely, if I would have had more money, I would have definitely bought the there were 3 items that they were selling. They're the youth. They're not really my children, but you know, they're the children of the empire, so got some lemon. But I would have got some money, I would have definitely spent to get the lemonade, the cookies, and I would have supported. But I wasn't gonna ask the technical, like how much they paid for the lemons or whatever the case may be. I would have maybe played some math. I would have said, and how much is that a pound? If a lemon is 100 grams, and you paid and you paid 50 cents for it. If it's 100 grams, that means, because it's a pound is 454, I would have done some math with them in a fun way as much as I could present it, because that's how sometimes our Aspie brain is just math conducive. And to be honest, I was just calculating the price, how much they were making, because if they spend how much lemonade and how much water, I was calculating in my head, how much the money did they spend for the lemons and how much return in their investment. Of course, they're raising funds and whatever have you, but that is just a neighborly thing here in Montreal, Hawk Island, and whatever. Financially, I'm stressed myself, so I can't focus. And now the problems for Aspies, the problems we encounter. So it's not a disease, it's not a disease, it's not a disease, it's not a disease. And I have to let that made clear, because I've often heard it. It's a disease when I say to somebody, even 2 weeks ago, and I said, no. And he said, oh no, yeah, I know the disease of the brain. I said, no. And then he stopped. I don't know if it was a citizen or not, but he kind of auto-corrected. Oh, you're right, it's not a disease, it's a neurological divergent condition. I said, yes, bingo, that's what it is. We see the world differently. We interact with the world differently. Some things we don't know socially, right? The socially inappropriate. For example, for me, if I would have had a discussion maybe with somebody who's a certain age, and I would have went into mathematics, I would have went asking mathematical questions. How much did you pay for the lemon? And then I would have asked the mathematical questions to calculate if they used 4 lemons to make a liter of a liter of lemonade, right? Let's say a gallon of for 4. They used maybe 4. They said how much did they make? I would have asked lemonade total, right? How much lemonade did they prepare total, and how much lemons did they use, and how much sugar did they use? I would have asked a technical mathematical question. They would have probably looked like me. We're 13, we're 14, we're 11. It would have been something weird like that. It's like, yeah, I guess, these are all the possibilities, and that's just how it is with Asperger's, it's the joys and the fun of joys that these things sometimes are more weird for us, to fully integrate. And it's a work in progress, It's a work in progress, and it took some blood, sweat, and tears, some years for me to accept it, and I just live with it. And I'm somebody, of course, who doesn't like violence. I don't like violence. I do not like violence. I do not like violence. But I'm hyper vigilant of my own scars and trauma, and being attacked viciously by surprise attack. I survived it, and beautiful flowers. Was bloodied up, fell in my head, had a dislocated right arm, and of course that is something which we do, of course, to the go, but that is just something which we protrude to have all our interest and all our appellations in all the dynamics which we have now. And of course to fully integrate and to fully love and to fully rock and roll with that, and to fully, of course, absorb. See, for example, that number 004 there, or that number. See, it's not the bus's number. The bus's number is 17, right? It's 17, that's the bus number. But that number, 38.048, that's something else. But that's a classification, because you notice a pattern. So most buses have 2 digits, then a line, then 3 digits. So most, if not all, of the buses in Montreal have 2 digits, followed by a line, and then 3 digits. The bus number is 17. So if you notice that pattern of the numbers, what are those numbers? What are those numbers coefficient about? What are those numbers, of course, co-equivalent about? What do they mean? There's a standard meaning. I'm assuming that it's a special segment, right? Because the 2 digits must represent something. Then the other 3 digits, but after the line, the union line, there's 3 digits. So that is across the public buses of Montreal. That is, all the public buses of Montreal have that, right? It's kind of inescapable in many ways. So all of the buses in Montreal kind of have that numbers. But then in front, you saw there was the number 0004. I'm assuming that that number represents the amount of time, the round, the trajectory, that one completion from A to Z, right? From it's where it goes, from where it goes, and then all the stops that it makes until it reaches the final destination, and then it does it. It repeats, kind of the cycle, right? Kind of the cyclical repetition. I mean, of the trajectory. I mean, the trajectory. So there's a repetition of the trajectory, in other words. There's the repetition of the trajectory. So those numbers also, so we could be obsessed, not necessarily obsessed in that neurotypical way, but we could be very into these weird, awkward, small little details, which were not, some might not be even concerned about, like small details, which, like I said, if you look on the lemons, because we just passed by a lemonade stand, if you look on sometimes the sticker, the label on it, there's a marking of the name of the company or the corporation, the multinational corporation, and then you might see some numbers associated. For example, 0307 you might see, or some numbers 3 digits or 4 digits. So that could be an industry standard or internal for the corporation, which means that these specific ones were harvested in region, that region, locality or region usually. Like I mentioned before, that when you see sometimes the markings on certain products, it could be that that's where that specific item, canned beef, canned pork, it could be sardines, for example, was specifically manufactured at that specific corporation. And the bigger the corporation is, the bigger the multinational, who owns sometimes subsidiaries, right, is the parent company and subsidiaries, and they might have all across North America, they might have these classifications, and they might have these standards, and they might have where the manufacturing plant actually is located. It could be a state, or it could be in Canada in a province. That number represents that specific factory, or it could be, the plant who goes on the assembly line, and then that number is put on all the cans that are there, in all the cans, all the goods that are there, that are manufactured, standardized, of course, to be so. So that is just one of the characteristics, not symptoms, because it's not an illness, and we certainly have our problems. The main problems we encounter are the three: as Aspies, lack of friends, and just for the solution for me, it's friends with benefits only. I don't want to waste your time, don't waste mine. Friends with benefits only, or pledge your allegiance to our family, support the dream, the empire. And the second one, in different orders. The second one is not suicidal and depression rates. Suicidal and depression rates is 9 times higher than neurotypicals. 9 times higher. I lived it. I was depressed and suicidal myself. It was for a few years, but what got me out of depression and was when I crossed Canada coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and that made me establish a strong esprit de corps. My fellow Quebecers, Canadians, Quebecers, and my brothers and sisters in the USA, North Americans, in the 50 to 10 to 3. And now we're gonna go to the washroom and then discuss a bit more. Turn off the light for electricity imported, and then we're gonna get a little bit of that bottle here and gonna hydrate with it, and gonna get a hydration, and gonna rock and roll up the way to the mountain. And super important to wash your hands for hygiene, even when you go to the washroom. And so let it run a bit. It's gonna be filled. I'm gonna keep it there, and grateful, thankful for this. Imagine this is the privilege of civilization right here, to have water, running water. I'm gonna drink a bit. a little bit more. Oh yeah, so good. Even has a filter. That's so cool. I'm gonna show it after I bag it up. But I'm really grateful for this. It's filtered H2O, filtered water. And then you have to take it, and so you don't waste. You know, it's with sensors, so it doesn't waste water. That's what's cool about it, and pretty cool. Bag it up. It's a privilege of civilization, you know, and it took some brains, took some muscle, took some brains, you know, to build all this civilization complex, which we have, and just roll a bit more. That's where we're gonna go. So see. So he says how many bottles were saved. It's a big counter, you know. So, but we don't know when the counter started, but this is pretty cool. And thanks. Yeah, that's the rock and roll, man. Technology and good for the environment. And now we're gonna go up and finish the conversation on Asperger's when this was a big storm here. This was in 2017, yeah, August 22, 2017, I remember. Hey, this is in, I'm not sure if this was in my park, but this was, I believe, in Park, Girard Park. Yeah, see, this was a big storm of 2017, August 22nd. So August 22nd, that's where I was in, that's where we were in BC. So today we're the 21st of August. So there was a few big storms, more storms like before. More storms like before. So it's 20. So tomorrow is gonna be 8 years. So as I'm celebrating, of course, 8 years. 8 years since I crossed Canada coast to coast. 2017, August. August 2017, I crossed coast to coast, coast to coast. August 2017, that's when we got out of my depression, and I was depressed, suicidal, and that's what got me out of being depressed and suicidal, crossing Canada coast to coast. In August 2017, we went saluting our firefighters, let some love and go for the firefighters towards them, and a little bit of that rock and roll with it. Plumbers, electricians, bakers, nurses, those in the daycare workers to change some diapers, public workers, filling up the potholes, changing the aqueducts. So always gotta mention them, marching a little bit for them as well, you know, because a lot of us are financially stressed, eh? Turn your heads left to right, and even though all the workers, today's price is increasing. Anyways, back in 2017, I crossed Canada coast to coast, and that event made me come out of my depression, and I came out of my depression when I crossed Canada coast to coast, and that also made me establish a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians, Quebecers, who I consider as family, you know. I know sometimes we're on the more dysfunctional basis, but my brothers and sisters in the USA too. I was born in the United States 3 times, post 1776, and once I was born a woman, twice a man. When I was born a man in the USA post 1776, I served in the United States Armed Forces, 2 different wars though, in 2 different incarnations separately. Same US Army, 2 different wars, and the wars were 156 years apart. So they had some apartness, if you will. They had some temporal distance. But nonetheless, the same US Army founded more than 250 years ago. So that is just something which I have to do, an appellate, and gotta salute the public workers, bus drivers. See, there's 44 and then 007. So it's 2 digits, a line and then 2 digits. See what I was telling you earlier? 40. That one was 40. That one's 44. And the other one in front also has 007, but it's 38. See. Anyways. So there's a certain standard, right? There's a purpose to it, there's a classification. So back in 2017, and I crossed Canada coast to coast, and that event made me come out of my depression, and I was depressed, suicidal, and when I crossed Canada coast to coast, that kind of made me come out of my depression and I stopped being suicidal. I guess we're gonna go straight ahead, straight to the mountain. I was gonna turn a little bit, but nonetheless, I said, well, we're gonna go straight and then come back and to the top and back. That's how we're gonna do it, to the top and back today. So basically, what it is that my depression and suicidalness ended in 2017. Ended in 2017 when I crossed Canada coast to coast, 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 east and west, east and west. So having crossed Canada coast to coast, coast to coast, that is when I got out of being depressed and suicidal. Turning risk, because sometimes they come fast here, and they don't do the stops, you know, don't do the stops, and of course that is just something which we have, of course, to get on that brutal side of thing, and that is something which we have to get doing, you know, something which we have to get doing with that, and that's beautiful. That is one kind of architecture. I wish I could split 50-50 with my anonymous friend with that, up and down there, we can live on it. Anyway, so crossing Canada coast to coast made me come out of being depressed and suicidal. That was just an event which totally changed my life. Prior to that, I was depressed, I was suicidal, and for a few years, and I moved, I thought it was 2016, it was 2015, and my memory, you know, prior to spring 2014 is a big mystery. I know I have a high school diploma, graduated high school, and I guess geopolitics was also always part of my component because I have a high school diploma and I have a reference letter for me to attend high school. For me to attend high school. For me to attend high school. After high school, that is, for me to attend Kingston Military College. So from high school, a letter of reference for me to attend, a very good recommendation letter from a high school teacher for me to attend Royal Kingston Military College. So thus, geopolitics was always part of my studies, of a major component of what I am, integrally, an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and philosopher and artist, and living a little bit of those flowers there on the side, and that is something which we gotta do. So that was always part of my, component, you know, and part of my life. I guess geopolitics, since if you want to go to Kingston Military College, you have to have a knowledge of geopolitics is required if you want to prepare of defense and army, because it's something which is required. That's nice. It's not nice in the ball how it is there. It's quite super nice. So that is just basically what it is. Oh, gonna get out of the way for a child to do his things there, and gonna wait, and now it's clear, and now gonna do it like that, because if I have the big backpack and I'm a bit clumsy, you know, there's safety, there's security when I cross the street, you know, because I'm going to the mountain. I just wanted to make sure that child had his fun, but I guess if I was a parent, I'll just say be careful, because that's on private property, and don't just your hands, you know, make sure that it doesn't have spikes and other creatures and bits, you know, because I guess have some fun pulling the weeds, but just to make sure that it's safe to do so. So as a parent, I would inspect, and I said, okay, they look okay, let me take a look. Like, but this is private property, you can't do that here, but I'll show you where you can do it a bit. You're not supposed to, but say without ripping, just touch a bit, and without ripping, and explain to the child some things, you know. But it's important for them to have the fun as well, to be free as children, not, you know, so consider you're a great family, you know, Quebecers, Canadians, and I'm not perfect, far from it, and I put the youth and children's fun high priority, you know, their fun, their safety, liberty, and their joy. I value the youth's joy, the young people's joy, children's joy, and that's a great one. Red, my favorite color. That rocks and even says red on it. It's beautiful. When I see red, I go, nice. It's my favorite color. So, and I wear it now. I wear it often, if not every day. Very rare that I don't have anything red on me, I guess. Here's the public workers. Gonna send some salutations. Let's see. what's going on. Got some brains, got some muscle. Send some love to the public workers. Thank you for changing the aqueducts. We're gonna get a little bit of drinking water. Hey, we take it for granted, but imagine all the work underneath, eh? How it was done across the... Oh, I'm gonna go through here. How it was done across the decades, eh? To have all the sewers, the canal systems across the great North American cities. They pretty much follow pretty much similar standard, Canada, United States, but so much brains and muscle for us just to have drinking water, eh? Tap water, drinking water, shower water, otherwise we will be here in Hawk Island, Montreal. We're surrounded by a big river, eh? Montreal, we're an island. Island of the H-A-W-K, Hawk, my totem bird, but underneath, you imagine how much work was done, eh? To have what I call the civilizational complex, and we have the privilege of civilization. That was my thesis back in 2023 as a philosopher, posted online. So back to Asperger's, just to finalize, Aspies like myself and many Aspies, although we're a tiny small community, tiny small community of less than 1%, about 0.44%, we suffer from three main problems. And for me, the solution for the lack of friends, because I made lots of friends, especially in the Pride parades of the past 7, 8, 9 years, 10 years. But I lost a lot because of Aspies were different, you know. So it can be difficult to build those bridges. But I gotta give a shout out to my anonymous friend who wasn't my friend because of the money, because I never had any. Gifted me 2 books, which those books are related mostly to autism, but there's chapters on Asperger's on it. And one specific book, which that one was loaned because it was a library loan 4 times. Library loan, that book I read. It was loaned, rented to me because it was from the library 4 times. I recommend to all. It's called Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. So there, that book of course made me realize how I'm different, you know. How I'm different, and this difference also makes me and many Aspies vulnerable to certain things because we see the world differently. We might not know these social dynamics such as gossip and stuff like that. They don't come easy to us. Our brain processes the world, the information differently, so we might not fully know how to respond to certain, for example, such as gossip. We would want the person to be present, or rather discuss some solutions and take action. And for the individual and the collective, myself as an individual sovereign citizen, rather than, you know, it's strange. Aspies we might block, we might not know what to say in certain circumstances when we hear things. So that's why the workspace even is designed, created mostly for neurotypicals, eh? That's why we lose a lot of jobs. That's another problem, not just the depression and suicidal rates are really high, and depression and suicidal rates are 9 times higher than the neurotypicals, paradoxically. The lack of friends, and for me the solution is, don't waste my time, I won't waste yours. If it's work, we do work. If you want to dance priestess of the goddess, I get that priestess, H-N-N-H. Keep my name out of your mouth. If it's not for blessing, otherwise let it be pestilence. So if we have an understanding. And of course, if it's got to be dancing and kisses, I got those. And rock and roll geopolitics, military defense strategies and drills. As you can see on my hundreds of videos, sometimes I discuss it more in a superficial manner, more or less, blah, blah, blah. It requires my dream of mass public-private partnership fundamentally, or friends with benefits only. You're 18 plus, you're of age, adult age, you're black, you're white or black, you're a man, you're a woman. You want to love, we could do that rock and roll gridiron, you know. We do that good massages because I can't afford one, but you got to be of age, you know. So don't waste my time, I won't waste yours. Don't waste my time, I won't waste yours. Friends with benefits only, or work, and that's how we situate ourselves. So besides that, the other problem is, of course, the high unemployment. Unemployment stands, of course, at 80%. So the unemployment stands, of course, more than 80%. 80%, you know, more than 80%. 80%. More than 80% translates in numbers 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5. Look at this here, how it stands here. Isn't it? Wow, tree. Oh, it's fell there, here, I guess. But it fell on the streets, eh? So we gotta put it, I guess, in the. See, it looks like a staff. Oh, it fell on the streets. Better put it in the. Put it somewhere. So, I guess if you're jogging and you don't see this, you might trip on it, eh? I almost tripped on it, but I saw it before. It was on the. See, but if you're jogging and you trip on it, you know, so turn your heads left and right. Right and left when you cross the street. So it kind of looks, see, kind of looks like that. Alright, like this if you put it, but kind of looks like that. See? It's like a staff. Like a staff, I guess. See? Ancient staff. From a past life and hieroglyphs. So that is, of course, something which, of course, we have to confluence and we have to do, and we have, of course, to do, of course, all the possibilities that we are, you know, aspies, and this difference makes us sometimes vulnerable. And parallel to aspiness is, of course, the characteristic and the traits that are, of course, conducive to high unemployment, 80%. 80%. See, you can see there the drill. Turn your heads left or right, you know. Turn your heads left or right. And that is something which we have to do, you know. So, and that was something which we have to do. I'm gonna turn here, I'm going that way. Thank you. Going that way. So, that's aspiness. Aspiness. I'm gonna put it there because it has some, it's not safe for the children, see? It has some barbs, so it's not safe for the children, see? Has that metal, so I'm just gonna discard it. Just gonna discard it there, and that's it. I just noticed, see helicopter going south, south, south. How many miles an hour, how many kilometers an hour? I know it's going straight south. If you notice, it actually is going straight south. South, south, south. Now, that's where the helicopter was heading. Of course, as an aspie, of course, we always try it. As an aspie, of course, I always, of course, try to calculate the distance and of course the altitude versus vis-a-vis to try to figure out how fast it's going, but I'm not going to be precise because the calculations can only be estimations. Estimations only. They can be estimations, they're not precisions. I cannot say that it was going 156 miles exactly an hour. I'm probably going to say that it could be going between 122 miles an hour and 175 miles an hour. Kilometers and miles, they differ, so it's a big difference, percentage-wise. Right, if you have to put a percentage between miles and kilometers, there's a difference, so we're not going to be able to estimate that closely. You know. Look at that cool one. They go firefighters, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors. So those are the three main problems for aspies. Lack of friends, high depression and suicidal rates. I lived it for a few years, and thank God it's goddess. I went on the trip. I'm still in debt because of it, but it was worth it because who knows, maybe I would have just ended my life, eh? So it was worth it, you know, to have it. It was worth to have it. And the other one is the very unacceptable high unemployment rate. Stands at 80%. Smooth operator, gotta get some red and purple, gotta rest some green and green. I sing rock and roll, that's my special interest, as well as sports and fitness. Dancing in particular is my favorite sport, but I love all sports, all physical activities, and of course geopolitics, and I love gardens like this one. So beautiful. Thank you, public workers. Embellishing the cities of the empire is going to be also a priority, and a great arbeit work, arbeit labor, you know. That's how it is, and that's how just how we rock and roll it. Besides that, what is going to be consequentially is, of course, the other problem we have, of course, is of course the lack. The unemployment is too high. It's 80%. We have to. It's unacceptable. Think about it. It's really unacceptable that unemployment stands at 80%. Can you imagine 80, not 8. 11 times for Aspies. The unemployment is 11 times higher for Aspies than for neurotypicals. 11 times. For every one of you, or the vast majority of neurotypicals, there's 11 Aspies unemployed. More than 80 even. It's even more than 80%. Sometimes it's 85. And we're less than 1% of the population. So that's why it's 11 times. You realize how disproportionate it is. Hey, this is a nice one. This is a nice one. I will see my friend writing in this one. Well, anybody, but not just my friend or me even, but I don't have a car. I drive these, auctioning them for $1 million. I wouldn't mind having one car, I guess. I want a 1963 Cadillac. Cadillac is my favorite car. And if an Aspie's special interest is cars, automobiles, then that Aspie would be, of course, that Aspie would be knowing so much about cars. Would be knowing the manufacturing specifics. We'll be knowing, of course, all the manufacturing. We'll be knowing how much it goes an hour, how much it has if there's different circumstances. Gotta salute the firefighters, and when you hear, of course, the firefighters, gotta salute the firefighters. Gotta love the firefighters and send them some loving, you know, some good loving with that, and gotta send some love to the firefighters, and I gotta love those firefighters. Somebody loving them, you know. Give them, finance them, billionaires is a Dragon Army General, Dragon Order. Finance the firefighters spas and massage therapy sessions. That's a must. And I love this garden, how it is there, so long and elongated, good beautification. And there they are, engine company. And oh, that was just for fun and for birthday parties, and that is something where we have, of course, to get a little bit of birthday party, and that's sometimes which we have to celebrate. You know, I celebrate every day since I died of COVID. Carpe diem since February 2020. I was struck, it was like death, pestilence, and disease, and between February 2020 and March 2020, I fell ill, and I thought I was gonna die, and you know, that's what I thought I was. I thought I was going to die. I thought that was it, and I was struck. I got vaccinated 3 times. That's why I urge all to keep the protocols of COVID, hygienic protocols of COVID intact. Hygienic protocols of COVID intact. That is to maintain them. I guess I form new habits, but Aspies, you know, myself included, we have these ritual-like routines, and my trinity of routines, or my daily routines. Almost, of course, we gotta get to those, of course, we are involved in those things, of course, which make us involved in those things. For me, it's geopolitics 24/7, sports and fitness. Dancing is my favorite sport, and rock and roll, so it's either working out, training, marching, doing some geopolitics, rock and roll, or geopolitics or sports and fitness, any one of those. That trinity. And that's the real one there, I think. That's the real. We gotta salute also firefighters, and those are the trinity of theories, you know, which we have, of course, to appellate, and that is something which we have to, of course, fully understand and be prudent of, that we got a little bit of that rock and roll for the go, and get a little bit of that do, and get a little bit for that good publishing there. Gotta get salute the workers. Imagine all, of course, the working there, the arbeit to change the aqueduct so that the houses have clean water, clean electricity, clean water. All that, of course, that is something which we have, of course, to be appellative about. And I guess for some that's the truth, but for others is the sun. So 24/7 for the firefighters, marching, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, daycare workers, changing diapers, and the electricians, the plumbers, the daycare workers, those involved in the production, distribution of food. And you know, I live here happily, joyous. Sometimes moody. You know, I guess I get flashbacks of PTSD and scars and financial stress, and I am reborn with a new name, Adrian Hana Dragon, although officially get that paper, of course, to change it, but it requires, of course, some time and to change it and to do, of course, the beneficent and whatever we have to do, you know, is something which we gotta drill. So it's something which we have, of course, to get, and something which we have, of course, to understand. I don't require much support as an aspect. I require more understanding, you know, and the three problems for friends with benefits only, that's the solution for me. Working out, training, exercising, and I have these routines and aspects. We have special routines where we are super focused, super intense, super concentrated, super dedicated when we do those things. And no special interest, aka obsessive interest, preoccupy the majority of our time with intensity, focus, concentration, dedication, and engagement. It varies from individual aspect to aspect, but pretty much for me it's sports, fitness, dancing is my favorite sport, and I've been on the fitness journey since I got out of being depressed and on my depression and suicidalness in 2017. Summer 2017, so celebrating 8 years. I keeping my fitness journey every day, and I'm just gonna get out of the way a bit. I lost between 93 pounds, about 80 and 93 pounds, about 80 and 93 pounds, about 80 and 93 pounds. That's how much I lost, about, you know, 80 and 93 pounds. That is just so much that I lost, about 80 and 93 pounds. And that is some things which we do, you know, which we have, of course, to appellate in consequence where we have to be, and we have, of course, to get, of course, all the victims where we are, of course, you know, the civilization projects where we are, of course, to build, what we are here to build together, the Imperial Republic of the 63. So that's another beautiful garden there. But my only stress now is just financial. Friends, like I said, friends will benefit. So that's all for me. That's how we consequentially be in the prudence, and that's, of course, how we do it and how we rock and roll with it. And that is just something which, of course, we got to live with, because Asperger's, it's just a mental neurological condition which, of course, cannot change, cannot vary, of course, and it's not to be medicated. It's not an illness. It's not a disease. I'm not a disease, although I remember a few years ago in the job, and I had many jobs, but I lost a lot. People were saying, you know, that's a disease. And, no, I'm not a disease, and I don't require much support, just understanding. And I guess if the workplace, you know, if we would just go do the job and do whatever needs to be done, and that's it, that's all. That's what it is with that, and that's just something where we have to be and appellate and integrate in all the capabilities which we are, and we have to just live with all the scars. And, you know, I wish all my brothers and sisters and we're struggling with XYZ, WZ demons, you know. Well, I got some demons more or less, and I've been out in the open for years and years. And if you're black or white or black, you know, if you want to do some loving. You can loving rock and roll, you know. And I've been in the open part of the LGBTQ community for years now, and I guess they don't let Michael Sam play in the NFL because he kissed his white boyfriend when he got drafted. I guess they didn't let Michael Sam play in the NFL because he kissed his white boyfriend when he got drafted. I guess they don't let Michael Sam play in the NFL because he kissed his white boyfriend when he got drafted. I guess they don't let Michael Sam play in the NFL because he kissed his white boyfriend when he got drafted. What? They can come kiss with the Dragon Army because we're the army of the free, the brave, the strong, the loving, and the just. Can't be bought, we can't be paid, we can be bought, we can be bribed. Some of my dragons are dragonesses. Nobody is born a dragon. Freedom is new under the sun, eh? Mr. Solomon, you know. Freedom is new under the sun, and since my anonymous cousin there has the dog, and she's gonna get out of the way, and you know, a little bit of jogging is always good. And like I said, you know, if you want to be friends with benefits, black, white, that's it, that's all, no problem. And I'm not somebody who is sexually frustrated, and to be honest, if I would be, I guess I would just discuss it, you know. I would discuss it, and you know, that doesn't mean that I am active. I'm just not frustrated, and not necessarily that I'm active in that department at the moment. And I'm still gonna propose again by September 11th, the third time. I guess I'm gonna have to maybe do like Joe Biden, propose over and over, maybe 7 times, eh? I guess he got a yes finally after 6 no's. Supposedly that's the legend about Biden, but I got 2 no's. Maybe I'll get a third yes. The third one I'll get yes, or the 10th time if I don't get kicked out and end up on the streets. Might be becoming Robin Hood some gated communities, you know. Robin Hood style. That's, I guess, an Aspie sense of humor, but Aspie's a god. Yes, we have compassion. Yes, we have empathy. There's a lot of misunderstandings. Aspies, we show compassion. We have empathy. Just that we don't necessarily verbalize it by, you know, just console verbally, you know. Console verbally, because that might be a little bit, well, you know, can be, yeah, okay, yeah, blah, 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 blah. Because you might have heard for years and years and years, blah, blah, blah. But look at that snake. Look at that snake. Look at that snake. Look at that snake. It's like a coil snake, you know. Coil snake, you know. It doesn't look like it looks like a coil snake, you know, and kind of looks like a coil snake to me. Maybe it's stuck in there. Maybe one of my previous incarnations, maybe. And that's how we got, and that's how we do, and that's how we're gonna get that rock and rolling with that. That's just what we drill, you know. It's some things which we have to do. So that is just, we show compassion by action. By action, more by doing something. If we are to do, if we can do, or money I don't have, so I wouldn't offer necessarily charity, but the compassion, the empathy that Aspies show is more action based, kind of like that GTF2, you know, the Canadian Special Forces, you know, the GTF2, Canadian Special Forces, have the motto, the Latin motto. Well, even the city of Montreal has its motto, Latin. Concordia Salus is the motto of course, of Montreal. So, Concordia Salus. And it's facta non verba. The JTF, of course, the JTF Special Forces, of course, we gotta get that JTF, of course. And like I said, empathy and compassion come, of course, from a perspective where we got of the dynamics, of course, to getting on the drill with that, and that is something which we have to do, and that is just something where we got to, of course, understand in the fashion where we have to be doing like that, and that is something where we have to do, and of course we have to get on that rock and roll 24/7, of course, for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians, all involved in the production, distribution of food, you know. Gotta get some labor. There's the second helicopter going south. And that is something where we have to get doing with that, and that is just something where we got to get on that rock and roll. Sometimes we got to get those drills, you know, to get on that loving there, you know, nice red, and something which we have, of course, to be confident about, where we got to get here. I would like to get my anonymous friend a house here, and that is something which I would love to do, to get her a house Yeah, by the river best. That would be more necessary to be on by the river, but that is something which we have to get doing with that. And that would be more by the river. But here also would be something, and something which would be nice. In the faculties where we present ourselves, of course, to show compassion by action, to show compassion by action, and that is something which we have to get doing with that, is that compassion by action, which we, of course, have to appellate in the confluences, of course, of getting it in the go and getting, of course, in all the life where we are life affirming and where our aspiness is not detrimental, it's not negative towards others. You just have to verbalize it. If we're in a conversation, just let me know and I'll go my way, you go your way, We don't have to feign or to pretend, that we like each other or stuff like that. My individual sovereign liberty and in concordium with yours. And then we got like that dancing and like that gridiron on the field, I guess. Like that Super Bowl 47. One of my favorite Super Bowls. That's like one of my favorite Super Bowls with that. And that is one of my favorite Super Bowls. And that's just a correlative manner of saying that there must be some, I guess, like some regulations, rules, arbitration, just like when you get foul on the play, unsportsmanlike conduct, foul on the play, unsportsmanlike conduct, foul on the play, false start, or unnecessary roughness. I guess those four are, on the field of football, that's what you play, on the field of football, and that is on the field of football. Those four, I guess they can be given penalties, They can be given penalties with that, and they can get on that penalty, That is something what we have to totally be understanding. But yes, sometimes as we say things directly that might offend, so, and that's about it. Friends with benefits and employment, unfortunately, there has to be lots of work being done because 80%, I had many jobs. I just lost most of my jobs. I had jobs for 4 months, few weeks, 4 months, few weeks, 4 months, 3 months, a few weeks, many jobs I had, especially during COVID, and I'm still waiting, still applied, but that's of course something which we have to do in that rock and roll for all the dimensions, of course, where we are protruding to the well-being and the wellness of our coming of our Imperial Republic, and yeah, sometimes we have things subconscious, it's manifested in dreams and subconscious fears, subconscious fears which we might have, which we have. Sometimes they're manifested in a way, and in the other, and that just have to be, of course, in the appellation of all our dimensions. As freedom is a new thing under the sun, and within this civilizational complex that we are North America diverse, we have to. That is my premise. One of my philosophical premises is that we constitute a geopolitical complex which is not totally divorced but is distinct from Western civilization. And it's true, we, Quebec, Canada, here we made what I call the great linguistic compromise of the French language in order to have the continuity of peace, harmony through the French language. As a Quebecer, we are Quebecers by mainly because of our French language. French language is embodies in being a 21st century Quebecer. As I was a Quebecoise, I lived here as a woman between 1688 and 1735. In that 300 years ago, I was a different type of Quebecoise. It was also colonial type of Quebecois. It was becoming. It was still New France, actually. It was still New France. So it was not even the Quebec, Canada, Upper Canada, Lower Canada as we have it today. As I lived in many past lives, many incarnations, from ancient Egypt, priestess of the goddess in a past life, parallel life. I was from ancient Egypt, priest, and a farmer, a butcher in Roman legions, whatever have you. And I love that architecture there. It's really good. And look at that, really good with that. That is a really good architecture, and gotta salute all my brothers and sisters, cousins who jog, who exercise. I love seeing that. Brings me a big smile, and I love sports, fitness, and don't waste my time, I don't waste yours. Friends with benefits only, and we discuss, we consent, adults. I'm not frustrated. I get lustful, but I don't have frustrations, and if I would say I'm a little bit frustrated, but no, I'm not looking for romantic at all. If I marry somebody, we're gonna have to be somebody I already proposed to, which I guess I have a deeper, wiser, I guess, love, like in the aging wine wisdom, when a wine ages, it becomes better, and a kind of wisdom, of course, where it becomes better with the age, and of course it becomes better with the age. So kind of that type of marriage wisdom, type of Solomonic type of marriage. But it's interestingly enough, because in 1 Kings 1:3, Solomon is mentioned that he built a house and the temple, and as I will to build a forgotten goddess temple. I say God goddess, as I am a mystic as well, but it says there that Solomon married the Pharaoh's daughter. So that is a paradox, right? Because that's supposedly Solomon. If some argue that he's just mythological, it's a myth more than right, like many, like Lycurgus, although I can say that I orated a great Rithria as a priestess, Lycurgus in a past previous incarnation, or sometimes was born a man and woman across nations and empires and empires and empires and empires, as I am today. Adrian Hannah, Dragon Zero, priestess of the goddess. Keep my name out of your mouth if it's not for a blessing. Hope you got an understanding. And always for the butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, firefighters, plumbers, electricians, daycare workers changing diapers, and of course we got a little bit of that loving, and we got some of that manufacturing we need to do, and to be prudent on the roads. I know it's stressful times, and if you feel like screaming sometimes, you gotta scream, you gotta let your emotions, that I can understand. I just do not like violence. I don't like violence. I am hyper vigilant. If you want to do, that's why we got. Put those gloves on. You go in the rink, you put those gloves on, and you do that, channel the aggression. You channel the aggression. That's why we have that. That's where it has to be channeled and again sublimated. Just like sexuality or whatever have you, has to be channeled. It just has to be channeled. That's just the channeling of it. You have to channel it. And see, that's the downtown core area there. See, Montreal. You can see part of the blocks, but you can't really see the pyramid. See, you can't really see it. You're gonna see a little bit of that, but you can't see the pyramid there. It's not visible. So we're gonna go in the sun by that side, and that is just something which we have to, of course, go and protrude, and getting a little bit of that in the sun, and then we're gonna enter by the side and come back by that side or something like that. I guess we can change it every time, and I don't think I require to put sunscreen today, although I put a little bit of cream yesterday, but we'll see. Maybe I'll do that decision, of course, to make it go. So Asperger's again, high unemployment, 80%. That's 4 out of 5, 8 out of 10, 80 out of 100, 800 out of 1,000. Can you imagine that it's 11 times more than the neurotypicals? 80%, 80 in percentages is 80. That is 4 out of 5. So it's so high for Aspies. It's because the world, mostly even the employment world, the workforce is mostly geared, but there's more and more adjustments to the neurotypical world, to you, the 99.56%, and you see the world differently than we see the world differently, we see the world differently. So that's that we see the world differently in that sense. That's how we are, of course, different in how we communicate. And this communication style, of course, can be sometimes weird and awkward, bizarre, So just scar some. We're gonna go in the sun, I guess, straight up, and gonna get on that loving side of things, and that's something which we're gonna have to do. You're gonna go in the sun, watch the car, stay there. Watch the car, you're not supposed to run now. Taking a big risk. Now you can, but take a risk there, buddy. I gotta watch you like a hawk. When I'm in the public, on the streets, I gotta Be that hawk, you know? Hawkness. H-A-W-K. So here is one of the stairs where you can enter by this side if you so will choose to enter by this side, you know. We're gonna enter we're gonna go straight in the sun and just enter by the side, or even maybe not even go to the top, because we went there yesterday and we go pretty much every day almost, unless sometimes we go to the river or downtown. But I guess today if I go, it's gonna be the 4th time this week, or 3rd time, correction. And if we come tomorrow, we come tomorrow. So finalizing on the ASPE situation is the employment. We have to work on it. We have to work on the employment. 80% is really a high number, way too high. Think about that. Of course, it's 4/5, and that is just something we have to do, and the 8/10, and that is just something which we got to be doing. You know, look at those beautiful yellows. Oh yeah, caught at work. Who's working just like me, independently? Got those bees, got the honey. What do we do to revive the bees? So see, there's more bees here. Of course, where there's bees, there's honey. What do we do, of course, to revive the bee population? If we can do something, I guess it's working towards the environment and laying the foundations for the DGA, the Dancing Goddess Army. The DGA, Dancing Goddess Army. So now I'm going to discuss a little bit of geopolitics. Pledge your allegiance to our family. And you leave the baggage at the door when we discuss geopolitics, because that's my kingdom, my realm, my special interest. Because we Aspies have these special interests, and also known as obsessive interests, where we have to be encouraged, and Aspies can pretty much flower and be excellent and excel in those. And this is what I gotta say now. I have proof for this following statement. I have predicted what's happening now back in 2019 in October, November. In October, November, I predicted that there was going to be an international conflagration based on more academic, intellectual, more sophisticated levels of analysis. But of course, my prediction was several outliers, of course, of the prediction were involvement of the prediction. But one of the main premise was that due to unresolved conflicts from the 20th century, those conflicts are going to resurface, mainly from the Cold War period, which lasted a long time. And of course, it was between 1947 and 1991. And that's what I love, seeing a little bit of love. That gives me hope. That gives me hope, you know, and seeing somebody getting holding hands. And that's why also we got to fight for our coming Imperial Republic, the union of the 10, the 50, and the 3, the 63. Not just for money, you know. It's not all about the money. It's not all about the money. It's not all about the money. It's all about the money, you know. And sometimes, you know, you get hit with certain things, and it's like I thought I was gonna die of COVID, 2020, February, March. So that's it. And you know, whoever wills to be my family, our family, pledge your allegiance, see the river. And whoever loves me, love you back threefold. And may I be avenged 11-fold. So just like, you know, so that we don't mistake my Aspie goodness and kindness, compassion for turning the other cheek, because that's not the dragon, you know. So that's not the dragon, and that is not the dragon, and that's basically what it is, and that is what it is, you know. That's it. Where can we cross to be in the sun? Maybe on the other side. I'm gonna go take a look at the garden. And that's where we're gonna take a look at that garden there. that's where we're gonna go, you know. So see, look at this beautiful architecture. See how it is nice. Look at that, so nice. I just love it. Something about it that just makes me want to think, who built it? If you build it, let me know. Whoever built it, somebody must have built it. The architecture, quite a beautiful piece here in Montreal. A beautiful piece of architectural design and style, and on that side you're gonna see some of a good, of that good double plus good garden. So we're gonna cross them. Leave the bags at the door. Geopolitics. When we have to be, and we have to get that rock and roll, and that is something where we have to be doing, and that's just something where we have to be doing on that, and we gotta get that rock and roll for the butchers, for the bakers, for the nurses, for the doctors, for the firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians, and all those involved in the production, distribution of food. You gotta stop, buddies. It's now your way to cross. I got 11 seconds on the clock because they pressed the pedal and they advanced about 4 yards. Encroachment, 4 yards, penalty, foul on the play. Somebody needs a warning sometimes, just a warning always necessary. Let people know, because sometimes they don't know, especially with me, you know, with Asperger's. Sometimes I don't know if I offend or whatever, and that's it, that's all. Freedom be secured, enjoyed, and the centrism loved, and that's just something what we have to be doing, and we have, of course, to get concomitant about it, and all the civilizational complex. This is a nice garden here. I just really love. Thank you to workers who to build this. What a beautiful one. This one is so majestic. The public space embellishments is, of course, public space embellishments is something which I really love. So that's why I wanted to just pass quickly by here. Especially these ones feel so good. Don't rip them, but just touch them. See? It feels so good. Just so fluffy. Yeah, so fluffy. Yeah, so colorful. And I love the colors. Nice. Good choice. These ones, these are so nice and so multicolored that I just fell in love with them. And I wish I could have some of this myself. On our own garden, if you have the Forgotten Goddess Temple, we're going to need to have colorful ones like this with the green. So let's build the Forgotten Goddess Temple. I'm going to discuss now that I'm on the topic of discussion what I will to build. The 4. The 4, of course, which I will to build. The 4 which I will to build, of course, which is, of course, many, of course, which I will to build. And that's what it is with that. And, of course, the 4. Now I got 11 more seconds. If I will, of course, to build, that is something where we have to get doing with that. And we have to build the 4. On the Canadian-US border, let's build the biggest ever Coliseum. The Imperial People's Coliseum, to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome, which changed names. Before that, it was known as the Louisiana Superdome, just like I changed name. Before that, it was known as the Caesar Superdome, and now is known, of course, as the Mercedes-Benz, as the Mercedes-Benz Super Bowl. And of course, that is just something which we have to, of course, compliment and do, to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome. The Caesar Superdome, and that is just something which we have, of course, to do in all the complementary things where we are, of course, of life and of doing, of course, and of being on the go is, of course, a plurality of our natural well-being and wellness, where we're going to have sportus in perpetuitis. We're going to have sports in perpetuitis. Sport in perpetuity, sports in perpetuity, you know, sports is in perpetuities, sports in perpetuities. That's what we're gonna have. Sportus in perpetuitis, in Latin for 24/7 sports, and the inauguration event is gonna be me fighting Donald Trump, and that on the Canadian-United States border, we're gonna build the biggest ever built sports arena complex that will be 11 times what is currently known as the Caesar Superdome, and before that it was known as the Louisiana Superdome, and before that, of course, it had several other names, 3 names. It changed names 3 times, and it was where one of my favorite Super Bowls, top 5, was, of course, done. And of course, it was the Super Bowl, which was known as the Super Bowl 47, Super Bowl 47, and of course, that was one of my top 5 Super Bowls. The only one where my 49ers lost, but it was so good that I have to include it in my top 5 ever. Actually, top 4, because the 5th one is a is a non, of course, San Francisco 49er, is a non-San Francisco 49ers. Non-San Francisco 49er, where Tom Brady won the last Super Bowl with the Patriots, the 6th ring, one of the lowest ever scoring the lowest ever Super Bowl, the lowest ever scoring Super Bowl was of course known as the 13-3. The final score was 13-3. It was versus the Rams. So versus the Rams, they won 13-3. It was the lowest ever scoring Super Bowl ever. It was never ever so low. 13-3. 13-3. 13-3. This one, oh no, this one is for that one. See? Have the arrows. There we have to look. But see, that's made in Canada. See? Made in Canada. Made in Canada. That's good. Made in Canada. That's good. Made in Canada. That is something which is good. I like seeing that. See, that's aspiness for you. And of course, I have been, of course, checked before that. I checked a long time which was made in Canada, which was not. And of course, it is something which we have, of course, to appellate and, of course, conjugate about. So, made in Canada, that is something which was made in Canada. That is something which is really good. So as a confluence, of course, of all the internal dynamics where we are, where we find ourselves today, is to say that this building, this Imperial People's Coliseum, where we're going to have bi-weekly, monthly events dedicated, firefighters games, butchers games, bakers games, construction workers games, nurses games, daycare games, police games, security that is games, citizens games. We're going to have fast food workers games. We're gonna have cleaning workers games. We're gonna have, of course, teachers games, thematics. Every month is gonna be a special week where those games are gonna be occurring in any specific industry. We're gonna classify, I guess, in 12 for 12 months, and where we can include all the workers of both the 10 to 50 and the 3 to 63. And that's why we're going to build the biggest ever Imperial Coliseum, Imperial People's Coliseum, to be 11 times bigger. It's going to be 11 times bigger, 11 times bigger than the current. Look at those, 1, 2, 3, 4. See how my ASPI brain now works? I try to see if there's an equidistant. If there's a distance between that and that, if it's equal to that, it's mathematics basically. So in my brain, kind of popped out that it's actually, it is parallels. It's parallels. So that's weird, Asperger's thing. So between that point, but the 4 points there, I guess there's no letters, but you can put 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, but there would be a distance that between, if that's 1 and that's 2 and that's 3 and that's 4, between point 1 and 2, it would be XYZ centimeters or inches, and between 2 and 3 would be XYZ centimeters or inches, and between 3 and 4 would be XYZ centimeters and inches, and between 4 and 1 would be XYZ centimeters and inches or centimeters. So it seems to me like all that distance is equivalent, right? So, but that's just Asperger's. That's just Asperger's, you know. So those 4 points, yeah, that's aspiness. One-on-one, you just got the weirdness, awkward, weird, odd aspy behavior, which is odd. We're weird, we're strange sometimes. Like, bro, sis, 50-50, don't you miss. That's just, well, perhaps with another aspy, he would have said, oh yeah, and then he would have been, or he or she would have been like, yeah, think so, look, talk, parallels, mathematics, equidistance, equilaterals, parallels. Weird mathematics. I'm not an expert in mathematics. I just do, and I could do calculations of percentages for hours and hours and hours a day. Math, just do math for hours and hours a day, whether calculating percentages. I could do that for hours a day. without even actually, I guess, even realizing that it's been like, whoa, I've been doing math for 4 hours just calculating cost, percentages, or stored products XYZ. So back to building the greatest, biggest ever sports complex, the Coliseum of our empire on the Canadian-US border, built together, joined Canada and United States, saluting the boys and girls, brothers and sisters of Canada and United States in uniform, that NOR, at NATO, throw that NATO. Always developing strategies for the defense for many years now, and sometimes I discuss them a little bit, such as the total mobile defense theory, the TMDT, the total mobile defense theory. And when it becomes a system, the four-letter acronym becomes in parentheses, the fifth letter is added, and that means that we implement my total mobile defense theory for the 63 Canada United States joined via the planned, what I'm calling Operation Northern Scorpio, in perpetuity to be, for coast-to-coast, ocean-to-ocean, total security, total service, total defense, also parallel-based, integrated with my new 911 Total Dragon North American protocols for total security, total service, total defense. And flag spotted, flag spotted, flag spotted, flag spotted, flag spotted, flag spotted, flag spotted. And now we got a little bit of that rock and roll, and that is something which we have to do, and that is something which we have to appellate. So that is, of course, all the conditionality of what we have, of course, in the implementation of the protocols. That is sometimes which we have, of course, to integrate, and of course, to get that dynamics, of course, of this total, of course, implementation of our duration of our elements, of course, where we are, and where we are fundated, of course, where we are integrated in our dictums, in our civilizational complex that we have now as a protocols to implement the DRT, which I'm gonna get back to, but first gonna finish what I will to build together with you the biggest ever sports arena complex ever built, the Imperial People's Coliseum, to be 11 times bigger, than the Caesar Superdome, where 49ers lost to the Ravens by 3 points. Super Bowl 47 has several nicknames. That's one of my top four, and the other ones are 49ers winning in the 80s and 90s. That empire, not nation, give some charity, please reduce the ticket costs. NFL, National Football League, NHL, National Hockey League, NBA, National Basketball Association, MLB. That is what it is, and that's what it is for the go, and that's what it is for the double trouble, and that's how we got to be fundamentally in implementation, of course, of all our protocols for Super Bowl 47. That's where my 49ers lost by only 3 points, but it's still a lose, 34-31, right? Super Bowl 47 has several nicknames. One of them was named, of course, one of the Super Bowls, of course, was named. That same Super Bowl 47 has several nicknames, of which one is the Harbaugh Ball. Harbaugh for the surname, because for the first time in history there were two brothers, same family surname, brothers by blood related, because you can be brother or sister by, like us, the law of Thelema, and by pledging allegiance, the law of our empire. Dragon Army, nobody's born a dragon. Changed my name, and still gotta pay that money to change it officially, and of course that's just what you have to do. And of course all the dynamics, all the appellations, what we have, of course, to do is, of course, the other situational awareness. So this Super Bowl has several nicknames. Harbaugh Ball is one of them, Blackout Ball, and Bro Ball, Blackout Ball, Harbaugh Ball. So I guess that is a representative of also the defensive strategies for the North American collective, once we, of course, have to implementing the dynamics, of course, that we have to congruently implement them in the plurality of our being. So let's build the North American People's Imperial Coliseum on the Canadian-US border to be 11 times bigger than the Harbaugh Ball, that is where the Harbaugh Ball was played. Let's build a Forgotten Goddess Temple. Forgotten Goddess Temple. Forgotten G-O-D-D-S-S. Sorry, God Goddess it. It's a God bless. Goddess kiss. God bless. Goddess kiss our empire. God bless. Goddess kiss our empire. God bless. Goddess kiss our empire. And of course, that is just fundamentally what we have to do. And in appellation, of course, God bless, God bless, and God is JDDSS kiss, because I credit my surviving COVID, being depressed, suicidal, and being attacked viciously, survived a vicious surprise attack years and years and years ago, and other things which I survived, I guess, to the goddess also. Not that she needs us to get her building her a temple, because she has the pyramids, and I guess those are tombs and temples, and they remained, and they will remain after I'm gone. Bury me, a third of me with Papa Crowley, Hampton, New Jersey, Papa Alistair Crowley. A third of me at the back of the Belvedere here, Konjanak, and a third of me at the city of the pyramids. Or rotate every 11 years, put me in one place for the other. Every 11 years, put me, my whole body from here, Montreal, Hawk Island. After 11 years with Papa Crowley, 11 years in the pyramids, and I gotta check, cause I can't find a birth certificate, so I don't really know where I was born. I know that I moved from here, underground room of Sun Temple, moldy place, moved in 2015, and so that's more than 10 years ago when I moved, and I remember living there in about 2014 spring, and the geopolitical events which I remember were personal remembers, the Islamic State terrorist group, and I even took some action and collaborated with CSIS, Canadian Security Intelligence Establishment, and the RCMP, because I remember in about 2015 or 2016, there was, I found a propaganda piece, newspaper propaganda piece, relating to calling all to support the Islamic State, and that was in a freely distributed newspaper. I got shivers when I saw that, and I had to make a citizen's formation, and I remember that I had taken down that newspaper document, because it was on one of the pages, a community newspaper. Like, you couldn't believe it, right? Like, wow, you know, we had just got involved militarily against them, and we had just militarily got involved against the Islamic State. In about end of 2014, 2015, we were already involved with military action. And then you have it in Montreal, in a freely distributed community newspaper in Côte des Neiges, Citoyen. I found in this newspaper the propaganda calling for all to support and pledge allegiance to the Islamic State. But when I say pledge allegiance to us, is to Canada, United States, and all the institutions that we have now, just to be integrated with the two complementary government institutions, which are fundamentally public-private partnership based. That is the Dragonomic, Imperial, SSD, Legion, and to fuse the RCMP and the FBI to create a common currency and mass finance the rehabilitation of our citizens, brothers and citizens, and parallel to mass rehabilitation, mass financing, of course, it is the, look at that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 rocks here. I guess you got one, but the other one, a few smaller ones next to them. So the point is that I cooperated on several things of national and security matters. So some of my work is national security, binational to be exact, and even to the NORAD NATO complex. But of course, it is binational. Canada, United States based. Canada, United States. So it is binational related, and that is of course just the binationality which we have, of course, integral in the complex of our being, of course, to be binational. Security matters to be doing on that, and to be having, of course, something which we have to do, and we have to appellate, of course, in the integrally, where we have to be on the integrity side of all our well-being and of our civilizational complex, you know. And that is just what we have to get doing, and that we just have to get doing with that. So that is just the conflicts, of course, where we have to get doing with that, you know. It's something which, of course, we have to be appellating with that, you know. That's just something where we got to be in. So we're going to the top and that is just what we have to do. That was just what we have to appellate, you know. That is just what we have to be doing, you know. That is just what we have to appellate. And of course, imagine of course what we have to be doing on that, and we have to be doing on those appellations to get doing with that, you know. That's just something where we have to get doing with that. Hey, look at that, Nova Scotia. That reminds me of where I went to Nova Scotia in the department, and that's when I did that work with the CSIS. And some of my theories are, I don't discuss them much because of course they are national security sensitive, you know. National security sensitive. They are actually binational, not in Canada, and such as the total mobile defense theory, the total mobile defense theory, the TMDT. The total mobile defense theory, when we had, of course, the fifth acronym, the total mobile defense theory. The total mobile defense theory is, of course, something which, of course, we appellate. So, as we have 32 nations of NATO now, I guess it could be extended because the total mobile defense theory can be implemented across NATO country, actually. So, my fundamental dream is a public-private partnership. So, I'm good at geopolitics, and other things I'm not so good. And of course, leave the baggage at the door. Let's build the 4. Forgotten Goddess Temple to be 11 times bigger than the. To be 11 times bigger than the. To be 11 times bigger. To be 11 times bigger than the. What does you call it? To be 11 times bigger. Bigger than the. You know? And that's basically what it is fundamentally. The total, that of course, my will to build those bigger, 11 times bigger than the oratory, St. Joseph's Oratory. The St. Joseph's Oratory. The St. Joseph's Oratory. You know, the St. Joseph's Oratory. The St. Joseph's Oratory. The St. Joseph's Oratory, you know. The St. Joseph's Oratory. To be 11 times bigger than the... I know you know my secrets, Crow. Yeah, sometimes I lust for both. A black and white cock, I guess. Black and white cock, I guess. Black and white cock. And rainbow, red with it. All the colors, black and white, and penis, I guess. Wow. No need to spy on me, RC. CSIS. Not CSIS, I meant China Secret Security. China's Secret Security and Russia Security. Russia Security. Russia Security. Russia Security Forces, and no need. I'm gonna get hacked by the sun. Special hack. And it's in the solar flare. In the parallel life, I know everything about those transmissions and those transmissions lines and whatever those transmissions lines are, of course, in the consequential prudence where we are now, and that is just something where we are, of course, to be consequentially involved in all our dynamics where we live, of course, to be confluential about, and that is just something where we have to get appellative about and get serious with the DRT and get serious with coast to coast, ocean to ocean, rehabilitating our brothers and sisters who need to be. Myself, my only stress now is financial. You know, I just need some understanding, and I pledge you legions, or parallel, if you will. Don't waste my time, I won't waste yours. Friends will benefits only. I live an active, super life, active lifestyle, and of course we need, of course, to getting on the drill, of course, where we have all the appellations where we got, and we need to get it, of course, on the go, and that is some things which, of course, we got to magnify and to implement the DRT, debt fusion theory for the creation of the UE, And in a parallel life, I served a little bit in the police. When I met Louis Cyr in 1904, I did a arm wrestle with a strong man, Louis Cyr, and I couldn't use my arm for like 7 years, right arm, and in a past life. Before the RCMP, our federal police, equivalent to the FBI, our RCMP was before, had a name, the Northwest Territorial Police of the Northwest Territories, before it became the RCMP. And of course, I served a little bit in that. Many past lives, many incarnations. Now we gotta focus and go pay the attention to the DRT, the death refusion theory. And in a parallel life, I'm an ASPE scientist where my special interest is everything to do with science, technology, IT, and computers, and science, and physics, and mathematics. And of course, let me get a little bit of not loving, but you see that. In a parallel life, I will be able to know everything about those radio communications and antennas of radio waves and supercomputers, ICBM rockets. I build, design supercomputers, microchips, satellites, radio, television antennas, because science, technology, telecommunications, and mathematics is my special interest. In that parallel life, I'm also an ASPE, so I'm living in that parallel life. I live in the year of darkness 2029. I live in the year of darkness 2029. In that parallel life, I live in the year of darkness 2029. In that parallel life, I live in the year of darkness 2029. It is October 25th, 2029. In that parallel life with my own parallel self, it is October 2029, October 25th, 2029, October 2025th, 2029. October 25th, 2029. So I build satellites, supercomputers for the NORAD complex, and that's what I do, for the NORAD complex. And that is something which I have, of course, to complement and, of course, institute that we live, of course, now in 2029, October, in that parallel timeline. So now I'm just gonna direct myself, to go and, of course, direct my appellations, and gotta see a little bit of that. I love to see some hugging, holding hands, kissing, and some signs of affection. Always gives me some hope, because it's some of that good LOVE, That's what it is with that, and that's how we gotta get drilling now in the sun. We go to the top and back, we go to the top and back. Here my second home, headquarters of the dancing goddess in the dragon kingdom. To the top of the mountain. We're already on the mountain. Mount Royal has 3 peaks. West Mount, Outremont is there, and this is Mount Royal proper. That's the whole name. Mount Royal. It's got 3 peaks, and of course we go like this inside, We go like this inside, and that's somebody for years and years and years, for 4 years now. For 4 years, he's wearing some red on the bike. We never spoke. We always nodded the head to each other, and we saluted with the hands, each other, and nodding for 4 years. Maybe he's an ASPE. He, she, I can't really tell, but we've been nodding each other. We've been nodding at each other for like years and years and years. And hello. We never spoke, actually. No words. We always shook our heads, and I did the little, maybe that's myself from 2029, from October 25th. That's me, scientist. Maybe I created a time machine. 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 So it's a citizen who always goes on the bike for years and years and years. I've been seeing him for at least 7 years. But I started nodding at each other during COVID, about 4 years ago, more or less. And it's always nodding the head, but we never actually spoke a word. In all these years, he began smiling to me as well as I smiled to him, and I always do the hand wave, the salutation, the hand wave, the hand wave, the hand wave, the hand wave, of course, the hand wave. And now he was wearing red, my favorite color, red. So now we're gonna enter into geopolitics, and we're gonna get into the DRT, the debt fusion theory. So leave the baggage at the door. Back in, so now it's geopolitics. Back in 2019, and before, of course, I want to finalize that the 4 buildings that together, thank you construction workers, credit some rock and roll kisses, that I will to build is the Forgotten Goddess Temple on the Canadian-US border, the biggest ever sports arena complex ever built, the Imperial People's Coliseum, and of course, another one that yours truly wills to build is the Forgotten Goddess Temple, to be 11 times bigger than the oratory, and of course the Scarlet Crimsons and Scarlet are shades of red, the House of the Dragon, the House of the Dragon, the pyramid, maybe right here at the back of the Belvedere, House of the Dragon, and the Rainbow People's Palace for my fellow neurodivergent community and fellow LGBTQ community. So those 4, I credit some trillions of kisses, and I hear the 3rd helicopter, or is it the 4th now? Look at these beautiful pieces of Mother Nature, just like Mother Nature did some stairs. So we come from Civilisation, the 2nd biggest, most populated metropolis, Montreal, aka Hawk Island, to the mountain, and we see the harmony between the environmental harmony, and then the city. We gotta build that DGA to, of course, have 50-50 harmony, and of course to reiterate, and of course have all the documents where we have, of course, the consequential prudence of where we are aligned ourselves here, where we go, and here you gotta turn your head left or right, and gotta turn your head left and right, and that is just the confluence of where we are now. So back in 2019, I predicted that there is coming, in October, I have proof, by the way, I have proof of work, so I have that proof of work. In October 2019, I predicted that there's going to be an international conflagration, aka World War III. Based on several parameters, levels of analysis, somewhat academic, scholarly, intellectual, philosophical, as relates to geopolitics. But the main premise was that due to unresolved 20th century conflicts, of which the Cold War was a major geopolitical event, which was not yet fully resolved, which of course was not yet fully resolved. And of course in 2019, October, November, that's what I predicted, that due to these one of the most important premise and one of the most important fundamental reasons why I predicted that there's going to be an international conflagration was, of course, that there were unresolved conflicts which had not fully resolved from the 20th century, namely during the Cold War period. During the Cold War period, which lasted about 45 years, I say, well, I state it to be, as many do, that it lasted between March 1947 and end of December 1991. So for me, I place the Cold War period, the duration of the Cold War. There's a black bug in my eye. Try to get in, cause some damage. I'm gonna get eaten. So from March 1947 to December 1991 is 44 years and 7 months. 44 years and 7 months. 44 years and 7 months. You're welcome. 44 years and 7 months. 44 years and 7 months. Almost 45 years. So some even say 46, and this is a poem here, relates something to rage, books, and of course a little bit of that thunder, thunder, thunder. It's about the mountain, the thunder, and of course that's about the mountain, the thunder, and of course a little bit of that mountain about time, the mountain, and of course a little bit of that road, or chemin is kind of like a road. Tonnerre is thunder, montagne is mountain, and of course les yeux, that means eyes, about the eyes. So you have those poems which are hidden here, of course, all around. They're hidden and around about the mountain, and that's just what it is now. And gonna let my mane out a bit because we're on the mountain. Can let loose a bit. Let loose. That is the let the mane out. Let the mane out, and that's what it is. We're gonna let that mane out for now, and because here's an in and out, and see, get that. Androgynous, pansexual, aspie, artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical theoretical, clandestine theorist. Was not perfect, far from it. Got some of that rock and roll 24/7. And for the butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, firefighters, and the plumbers, the electricians, the welders, all those involved in the production, distribution of food, and all those, of course, now trucking on the road with the bacon, the eggs, the sausage, the milk, all the grains, the butter that we have, of course, and the horizon, of course, to be. We the DRT coming ASAP, and we have, of course, to appellate, of course, in all our dimensions and all, of course, our well-being, civilizational appellations, where we are, of course, where we are in transitory to be. Now to discuss the fact that, and I have proof for this, that I have predicted what's happening now back in 2019, October, in a general manner, overall manner, not with every detail. And one of those motives was that due, of course, to the fact that there were unresolved conflicts from the 20th century which have not been fully resolved. And if you look around the world, those conflicts, of course, still reverberate. Many conflicts are reignited, just like I predicted. In Russia, Ukraine is a conflict which was not fully resolved from the 20th century, right? The 20th century, of course, the Cold War specifically, the conflicts were not fully resolved. Many conflicts were not fully resolved. So due to the fact, of course, that many conflicts was not fully resolved, of course, that is something which we have to get protruding about. And of course, appellate that many countries, nation states, their conflicts today date from that period, of course, where we are, of course, to be positioned in the world today as a North American complex. That, of course, these are conflicts which were not resolved, and of course they are still ongoing now. So if you take a look at Russia, Ukraine, it's a Cold War era dating from the Cold War era, right? It's from the Cold War. Russia and Ukraine were united in the USSR for many, many decades. Israel, Palestine. Hamas is an organization which was founded in the 1980s, I believe 1984. I could be wrong, 1984, 1986, 1988-ish, right? Something like that. In the 80s, nonetheless, that I'm sure. But I don't exactly know the exact date that they were founded as an organization, Hamas, in the 1980s. Of course, something which we have, of course, to be doing with that, and sometimes which we have to appellate, of course, in the positional aspects where we got, of course, to get on that drill with that, and that is something where we got to appellate for those objects where we are, of course, intermission about to get it on those levels where we are, of course, to not know the dynamics of it. And of course, Taiwan is known officially as the ROC, contrast, of course, to the People's Republic of China, People's Republic of China. So this conflict, of course, goes, of course, from the 20th century. These are during the Cold War period where, of course, they were outlined. And, of course, this conflict was not fully resolved. Of course, this conflict was not fully resolved, right? This conflict was not fully resolved, which dates from the 20th century again. So these are unresolved conflicts. Of course, India, Pakistan, they're both nuclear armed powers, India and Pakistan. They also reignited about 6 weeks ago. They almost had maybe we're about to go nuclear on that, eh? So we got that. It's a 20th century conflict, post-partition, 1947. And they fought several wars, one in 1971. And they have the Kashmir Kashmir situation, which is a geographical region, right, which is territorial dispute. And just like Hamas, they were founded in the 80s, but they only took power in 2007 during the Gaza war. During the Gaza war, of course, they took power between, well, it was a civil war internally, during the civil war internally. That's what it is with that, during the civil war internally. They, of course, got it, of course, on the civil war, on the internal, of course, dynamics of where they are with that, and that is something which they have, of course, to get that sentimental values about that, the fact that they had only taken power about 20 years later, in July 2007, after a few weeks. Wasn't a long duration inner conflicts, civil conflict, but it was about a few weeks of a civil war. So that is just, of course, something which, you know, you have to keep in mind in the proposition, of course, where we are here in my second home, the Mistress, the Mountain Mile Royal, where I love to come and enjoy it. Of course, in the confluence, and of course in the apostacy where we are now, in the integral domains, of course, where we are to be revolved and resounding, of course, in all our characteristics here, where we do and we do and we do and we don't and we do and we don't and we see and then we act, right? So that's just a fact. So I predicted what's happening now. I even have proof, because parallel to having predicted what's happening now, I also made, designed, and created a World War III scenario workout training program system, officially titled the General War Integrated Total Body Training System, aka the Dragon Army Workout, of course, which I've made, of course, to go hand in hand with a World War III scenario. And parallel, I've, of course, done more than 372 sessions myself. More than 372 sessions myself. More than 372 sessions. I have performed more than 372 sessions myself of that own created workout training program system. I've done myself more than 372 sessions myself. That's what I done. I created a super efficient, effective workout training program system, of which I have myself performed or made or done more than 372 sessions. Yeah, more than 372 sessions I've performed myself, also known as the 300 workout, aka the Dragon Army workout, aka the General War Integrated Total Body Training System. So it's a simple, effective workout training program system which requires no equipment, which is not necessarily easy to do, but the fact that it requires no equipment is, of course, the requirement of no equipment, which it is, of course, the multitude of the plurality, of course, the engagement of where we are, of course, to get on that doing, that it requires no equipment, and you can do it anywhere, really, and really all terrain. But I guess when it's thunder raining, you gotta be careful. But you can check it out. I have hundreds of me doing it, hundreds of times. So I started in October 2019, and it is for mobilizing population, and I have been and will continue to advocate of our federal police forces and FBI, CIA, and RCMP, and even in high schools, even in the citizens, to be credited to mass finance fitness. That's something which, of course, I had been appellating to do, and that is what I got to do with that. And that is something which we have to do. That is what I got to do with that. That is what I got to do. I'm just gonna wait a little bit of that transmission, and gonna get a little bit of that loving here. I see somebody loving down there, and that is something which I have to do with that go, and something which I gotta be counting a bit of seconds where we go, and counting a little bit of that seconds with that is something which I gotta be mindful, of course, when we got here. It might be rusty, and that, of course, something gotta be rusty about that, and gotta get those sprays out and make sure that you drink healthy. And imagine all the work, the arbeit, how it was done here to bring all this up. When you drink this, you don't meditate, but do meditate. I meditate now for you when you lie, when you don't meditate. How much it took some brains, it took some muscles, some head, some brains, some thinking, and some brains and some muscle to build this, to get it up. How did they get it up the mountain, and to get it up here on the mountain? And quite an achievement, engineering wise, to have the water here on the mountain, the potable water, which is this fountain, which is basically a privilege of civilization, eh? It is basically a privilege of civilization, if you think about it, eh? So whoever did it built this, and you know, I don't know exactly when, but love you, free feet washing of the feet, some of those massages, some of that feet washing, because, you know, blah, 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 it serves a purpose, gratitude and expressing, but you got to be backed by some action, you know. Fakta non vorba, so HYDRAT, and we're going to get to the DRT. So, yeah. Oh, that was some good hydration. So now I guess we can, of course, appellate and be, of course, where we are to get, of course, on the doing with that and discuss fully DRT, and that is just something what we have to be doing on the appellative. And here you can grab a coffee, grab a bite. It's a bit pricey, but I mean, some people can afford it, but for me it's a bit pricey. I always get the cheapest coffee, I guess. You can have cheaper coffee for $2.50, but you can go and get a muffin, and see, there's the river. There's the river which surrounds the island of the Hawk, Hawk. From here you can see the river better. See, that's the river. It surrounds the whole, but sometimes we see my videos, the big river when we get close by. Sometimes we're over there, miles and miles, kilometers away. But here we're atop the mountain, headquarters of the coming of our empire, the island of the Hawk Island, island of the Hawk. That's what it is. And that's what it is with that, and that's how we have to get doing, of course, on the go. And here we get a little bit of the appellation for all those butchers, bakers, nurses, firefighters, and the plumbers, the electricians, and the bakers. And I come here for years and years and years. You know, I have my routine, and with Asperger's, you have a routine where you have it is kind of automatic in many ways, where you have a pretty much a routine video of that, and that's a little bit again. I gotta go do a little bit of roundup, and then we're gonna discuss the DRT, and you know, stay on the right, and just something what we have to be doing with that, staying on the right side and getting a little bit on that side of the things. Well, we of course appellate, and I just love this here. This is just so nice. Look at that. Isn't just so nice? I love it. Whoever did this here, is so much beauty. Look at us. Look at this. I would love to have this garden here. Look at that. This is just the best. So nice, and that it is, and that is how we do, you know, to get it going with that. And just the best garden. I just love it here. Look at that. It's so good. So beautiful. Whole garden. That's what it is. And this one's too, all the way. See? On both sides. So really, really, whoever did this gardening, I want you to build a Forgotten Goddess temple. It's super nice. Oh, gotta watch it. See? Look at that. Just the choices that you put, embellishment here. I gotta give a really wow. I give it a 10 for the garden. The choice, a 10. Really, it's a 10 for me. Well, these ones I don't know what their names, but look how nice they are. You can touch them a little bit. See? They're a bit on the touchy side. Wow. This one I wish to have at the Forgotten Goddess temple, and got the sun there. And get out of the way for. Here's the headquarters of the dancing goddess in the Dragon Kingdom, and That one on that side is of course the same thing like that, and that is something which we have to appellate like that. And yeah, here at the top, you know, at the top of the mountain, that's something what we have to be doing like that, and that is something what we have to of course do, you know, appellating together in the institution and of the top of the mountain where we are here. And of course the United States border is that way. So now we are looking south. The camera's pointing south to the 50 states. To the 50 states. So that is of course something where we have to get doing like that, a little bit of that rock and roll, and see that pyramid, and that is something which we have to get doing like that to get it on the go. And yeah, that's the pyramid, eh? So just gonna salute the firefighters of the 63, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the truckers, transporting all the bacon, the cheese, the lettuce, all the firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians, those in the daycares, changing some diapers. You gotta think about the daycare workers, eh? Lots of work there, changing some diapers today by the millions. The butchers, the construction workers, the plumbers, and electricians, the welders. Gotta send some love that way, man, you know, from over here, from the Empire, and that is a nice one, you know. That's a nice, super nice, man. Always love coming here. It never gets old for me, you know. You always got a little bit of that new meditation, and I always imagine all the work just to get potable water, eh? How did they do it to build water, eh? To get the engineers underneath the mountain for us to have potable water here. It's quite a feat of engineering. It goes against the altitude, right? Because you have to bring it up. So how did they do it? They must have done. Yeah, so lots of civilization is a privilege, eh? Would you able to do that? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I guess it needs some work, eh? There's a lot of work just to build it up, hey, to get water. So to get water here, how did they bring water here? How did they build water here, you know? Amour. Amour. Fuck. I just had some Snoop Dogg, and I was cursed to rap for the police. What a curse. Cursed to rap for the police, man. I'm cursed. If I rap, I gotta make a song. I ain't rapping with none of y'all till y'all make peace with the police. For the bakers, the butchers, the nurses, the doctors, the cleaners, the welders, the electricians, the plumbers. For the electricians, the welders, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, for the workers. For the workers, the plumbers, the electricians, the bakers. Look at that thing eating, see? That's doing a lot of eating there. That's why you don't pollute, see? He's eating there, and see? That's why I always say, don't. He's chewing on this, get sick. What did you have? Okay, recycle this. You have it just from there. I like the price because it's for the Thelemik, 718, but, you know, it's 308, so it's been there for 3 hours, almost 4 hours. 4 hours, more than 4 hours now. It's been there for more than 4 hours, eh? So, no, I'll wait, because I've been filming for, 4 hours or something like that. So, imagine, that could have been eaten and chewed by so that's right. So now we're gonna get into the DRT, the depth fusion theory. That is something which we gotta do, you know. So it's something which we gotta salute, you know. And it's rock and roll, yeah, man. Sometimes I laugh at myself because I laugh at my aspiness, and it took me blood, sweat, and tears and years to accept that I'm different. You know what I was calculating in my head? Okay, so this is mathematics. This is aspiness. So because it says here, this that I retrieved, it says here, order 290. I was calculating if that's all today or if that's for the week. It must be for today or for that specific cash. See, and this was printed at 308. And as I discussed during COVID with some secret intelligence services from the United States and from whatever, as I did some work with CSIS for national security matters in the past and for the RCMP, and that is of course something which we have to integrally state in all our well-beings and all our domains, you know, that we have of course to conflict and integrate. And this, even this doesn't go there really, brothers and sisters, because this should be recycled. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have a heart attack. This is all compostable. That doesn't go in the garbage. These ones, see, I don't have gloves, but these are compostable. See, recyclable and compostable. See, so these have to be put in the compostable. So oh my gosh, I'm gonna have a heart attack. So I'm gonna put all these. This is garbage. No, this is garbage. You don't put that there. This is compostable and that's garbage, you see. So this is not, this is only the brown ones. The brown ones are compostable. See, the brown ones are compostable, and that's of course recyclable. So you don't put it all together. Oh my gosh. And this one you put in that one, and that one you put in that one, and that one you recycle it. I don't have gloves to go deeper and it gets a little bit dirty. And these, you wasted these, but this, okay, that has a chewing gum on it, so you leave that one. But these you don't, this one you recycle. You don't throw that away, please, in garbage. I'm gonna have a fit. The environment, we have to do our part. See, this is recyclable. Okay, that's it for me. This one also, and this one also is recyclable. So you gotta recycle. Because if we don't do it ourselves, see this one also, and digging in is get dirty. I don't mind your drinking, but this is all recyclable. So this is a garbage. When you see the blue ones, that's a garbage. Don't throw what has to go in the recycling. If you don't do it, you know, if you don't do it, you gotta put it there, you know. You gotta put it there in the recycling. So that's why this bag has to be recycled, you know. Okay, this one is because it's dirty, I guess. These 3 cups, maybe because they're a bit dirty, I guess you can get away with saying that they're dirty and have a bit of that, and you don't want to rinse them. Fine, let's say. But so many other things, they're going to recycling, right? Even to go here, just the whole thing, just like so much. But I need some gloves. I'm just gonna not do that, and I'm just gonna recycle what I took for recycling and compost what I took for the compost. So okay, so fundamentally now we need to discuss that we need the DJ dancing goddess army. You saw how we have to do our part as individuals, eh? If we don't do an individual sovereign part for the environment, and for years and years and years and years, I've been coming here atop the mountain to do it. Okay, so myself. So now I'm going to make a statement in geopolitics that's geopolitical related, that you have to affirm with a yes, 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 yes. Our main geopolitical, or our main Canada, United States, this is reciprocally so. It applies for both Canada vis-a-vis the United States and the United States vis-a-vis Canada. And this is, if I can make a point of reference, which I do make often, just like the pi symbol. The pi symbol is always a number representing 3.14, 50, 16. It represents the circumference, the diameter of a circle. So of course the diameter, the circumference of a circle is always the same. So of course that is the representative fact and the representative aspect where it is of course to be interpolated that this one I'm going to say is just a constant, just like the pi symbol. It doesn't change. It's always the constant representative of the relation between the circumference of the circle and the ratio of 3.14, 16, and it continues ad infinitum. So that is so for this following statement. Our main objective when it comes to geopolitics, when it comes of course to foreign affairs, not domestic affairs, as a number one priority. The priority number one for both Canada and the United States reciprocally is to have the best, most cordial economic, social, financial, military, defense, strategic, social, cultural relations with each other. As the number one foreign policy objective, because we have a common destiny, common background of history, and we're part of the same geopolitical North American civilizational complex, and of course to the integral points that we share although the United States has a border with Canada, I'm going to stretch a bit here, with Mexico, it is so to be related with us. So of course that is representative, of course, of all the appellations where we are, of course, in the situational complex that we have, the geographical situation, which comprises that we are surrounded by two oceans. To the east is the Atlantic, to the west is the Pacific. Thus, as that is my favorite skyscraper there, the pyramid. See the pyramid. That is just our geopolitical reality, of course, is that we must have the best, most cordial relations with each other. That is just like the symbol N. The N, of course, is represented by the N, like the letter N for natural, Normandy, neutral, or neurodivergent of normal. That is, of course, the letter which is representative of the symbol, which the pi symbol, which not to be confused with the pi, edible pi, but the pi as the symbol which represents that constant number of 3.1416 as it relates to the circumference and the diameter of the circle. And that, of course, number being representative thereof, you have to, of course, always appellate and integrate that that's our coming Imperial Republic. Our coming empire will have two heads, two faces, two heads, two faces. Will have two heads, two faces, one benevolent and one to punish, I guess. We're going to use a few, as the 10, the 50, and the 3, and the 63 Imperial Republic. Let's do it September 11th for the World Peace Summit in Concord on the mountain here, Mountain Mount Royal. And of course, parallel to it will be our coming of our Imperial fusion for total security, total service, total defense, coast to coast to coast, coast ocean to ocean, which is fundamentally the public-private partnership of the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom. So just like that N, representing the symbol of the pi number, has two heads, two faces, so will our coming empire have like two heads, two faces, integrally integrated in it. So basically, that is the constant, and thus this constant reality that us, we must strive, both Canada and United States, we must strive, of course, to have the best, most cordial relations with us, with each other, Canada, United States, and the United States vis-a-vis us. We must have the best, most cordial relations with each other. That is just a constant. It does not fluctuate, and it is the United States vis-a-vis us as well. So that is reciprocal, right? Just reciprocity. This cannot be changed. This cannot be altered. Just that's how it is, and that's just how it is with that. It's all yours. That's just how it is. So you have to understand fully that this is just the reality. You cannot negotiate with this statement. It's not even a maybe, it's not even a no. You have, of course, to confluence, and you have, of course, to confluence and to integrate, of course, in the concomitant aspects, of course, where we have these dynamics. So, of course, all the relations where we are, of course, relational about, and of course, where we know, of course, the integrity of our Imperial coming Republic, that will have like two heads, two faces, just for the benevolence and for punishing, I guess. Punishing and benevolence. So you cannot argue with that. It is so. It has been so for decades. It is so today. That's why my DRT is binational. And now that I'm discussing the DRT, the debt refusion theory, this is part of my binational strategy and the bipolar geopolitical strategy for total BDD. BDD stands for benevolent dominance and dominion of the world by the fusion of Canada and the United States into the Imperial Republic complex via the implementation of the DRT, the creation of the Dragon Army, and the creation of the Dancing Goddess Army, respectively. The Imperial SSD Legion of the 63, what is a public-private partnership, and of course the parallel Dancing Goddess Army, Imperial Integrated Dancing, for doing what I just did now. Environmental action and education, environmental action and education, and environmental action and education, environmental action and education. So that is just what it is inside integrally that we have to do. As if I look here again, I don't have gloves or whatever, but see, this is a garbage that there's so much that could be recycled here. Even I look down and no, this is no good, because that's garbage, unless some public workers pass, but they usually know the garbage and the recycling. Then you make the appellation, because the recycling is over there, right? Those big bins over there and downstairs, that's the recycling. So if you don't do it, you don't do it, right? You don't do it, and you don't do it with that. So that is just something which, of course, we have to get doing and understanding, and of course all the situational complexes which we are, of course, appellated and integrated to do so. Now, of course, in the integrity, of course, of our whole well-being and wellness of where we are to be directed towards, that we have, of course, to myself included, have to recycle all this, and those I guess have to be. They're both. These are both recyclable and compostable. So all this bag, you see, it says here, recyclable and compostable. See there, the small writing. Let the camera focus. Gonna let the camera focus. It's marked there, see? It's marked recyclable and compostable right there. So that's why all of this has to be recycled. All of this has to be recycled. And this, I look, if it's clean enough to be recycled. But see, that's the thing which you have to do. That's why we need the DGA. So now I'm going to discuss, of course, the DRT. Now we have four main problems in whatever you put those four problems, economic, which affect both Canadians and the United States. And that is, of course, the motive, the reason why we must, of course, implement the DRT, the debt refusion theory, which is, of course, fundamentally the DRT, the debt refusion theory, which, of course, has to be implemented. So see, as I go to salvage this, that's what the Dancing Goddess Army across the 63 will have as a reason to be, as a reason, of course, to be into conflicts, of course, with our civilizational well-being, to be on the go. So the DRT, debt refusion theory, is something which we're going to have, of course, to appellate, and we're going to have to get on that go with that, and we're going to have to get on that appellation, of course, to be on the go with that, and to be on the left, right, and of course in the middle with that appellation that we have to recycle this. So we have four main problems, of course, which we're gonna have, of course, to get working with. Four main problems are affecting us at different levels. These four main problems are whatever the four main problems which are affecting us now. One of it is the growing cost of rent. The other one is I say my rent increased between 6 and 10, although I'm not going to give a number, divulge a number. I'm going to say that it is between 6 and 10, right? Between 6 and 10. The growing cost of living, you know, prices are going up. Butter is going up, bread is going up, cheese is going up, and lettuce is going up. And of course, all the things which we have to do on the go. And see, here's where we come to compost, right here. See, that's for paper. These are for that. See, this is where that goes. No plastic. No plastic.
There you go.
Compostable.
We don't have a compost. You can just put it in the paper.
Put it in the paper, and this one in the papers.
Yeah.
This one there, eh?
There you go.
I found this. They left it there. They left it on the mountain. This should all be recycled. Oh yeah.
Take initiative.
I've been doing this for years, eh?
Yeah.
On the mountain, yeah.
Clean up.
So could I go deep in the forest, you know?
People just leave their shit wherever.
Yeah, and sometimes we got lots of flora, lots of fauna. We're trying to preserve the place, you know?
Yeah, of course. That's awesome. That's kind of our mission too.
Yeah.
We have the. I mean, we're more the cafe part. But then,
Yeah.
But then, like, we have a wider organization that kind of, you know.
Amis de la montagne.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I know. I'm a independent Ami de la montagne myself. Love you guys. Bye bye. So we gotta. That's why if people don't do it themselves, that's why you have to. You have to do it. I mean, it takes the individual, and that's what we have to get doing. Of course, with our neurodivergence, that we are a bit awkward. But here, you got a little bit of help, and thank you. We're gonna get doing on that. We're gonna get on that drill to go. So now we're gonna discuss the DRT, the debt refusion theory. As we gotta get on that loving side of things, we gotta get on that, and we're gonna get, of course, to appellate, and of course, we're gonna go all the way in the back of the forest. So we're going back into the forest, and that is something which we have to do. And we have, of course, to appellate in the dimensions where we are. And here you can drink some water over there if you so want. And that is just how we have to do it. We got to get it on that left, right there. And we got to get it for those butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, and the firefighters, and the plumbers, and the electricians, and the welders, all of them, and they gotta get it on that go, and that is just something what we have to get drilling with, and that is just something what we got to appellate. So the DRT, 4 main problems are facing us: the growing cost of rent, growing cost of rent, going cost of rent, going cost of food. The food is going up, the rent is going up, and the other things are going up. Lots of things are going up. So due to these 4 main problems, in whatever order you put them, place them, is of course the fact that they're augmenting, increasing the prices, that is, cost of living, price of bacon, price of cheese, price of butter. The prices are increasing, you know. The prices are increasing. So of course, that is just what we have to keep in mind. So cost of living, with the cost of everything going up, the stagnation of the salaries, cost of rents. My rent went up, of course, between 6 and 10, and of course the fourth one is the current cost of the credit cards. The credit cards are going up. There's a massive credit card indebtedness. I don't have a credit card. I have $10,000 to the Bank of Canada. That is my debt as an individual sovereign citizen. So that is what you have to keep in mind. So the DRT is the solution due to the 4 main problems which I mentioned, which affect both Canada and the United States. That's why my DRT theory, the DRT, debt refusion theory, has to be implemented binationally. Because in my DRT theory is also integrated monetary integration theory, which is the financial theory, which was implemented in the European Union by the Europeans, which of course destroyed in the 90s their national central banks. The Italians, the French, the Germans, they destroyed their national central banks. And of course, that's what they did. They destroyed their national central banks in the 90s. They destroyed their national central banks. Germany, Italy, France, Belgium, other countries together, and destroyed all their currencies. And they created in the 90s the ECB, the European Central Bank, which is a central bank of central banks, multinational central bank, which issues the common currency. So they no longer have a national central bank like the Bank of Canada or the Federal Reserve. So integrated in my DRT, the debt refusion theory is integrated, the monetary integration theory, which is of course the financial theory which I just mentioned. So here is explained, and again, because of those 4 problems, the growing cost of living, cost of rents increasing, cost of living increasing, cost of rents, and of course the other is of course the stagnation of the salaries, and the other one is the growing credit card indebtedness. So this is a boiling point, a financial, economic, commercial disaster which can happen tomorrow or Monday. So this is the financial disaster, of course, which can, of course, happen, of course, tomorrow, which can happen tomorrow or any other day. So that is just the 4 rocks again. So that is just what has to something similar to my theory. The DRT has to be implemented. Something similar to my DRT, the debt refusion theory, has to be implemented. There's no choice but to implement something similar to which resembles my debt refusion theory. My DRT, the debt refusion theory. So I'm going to explain it. We're going to take all the public and the private debt, my $10,000, your $10,000, their $10,000, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, Canada, all the public private debt of Canada, we're going to convert it into US dollars. We're going to convert it into US dollars, and we're going to create, added with the US debt. So we're going to add it all up, add the public and the private debt. Here we can build a pyramid house of the dragon here, and I guess forgotten goddess temple, but to be 11 times bigger than the oratory is going to be more difficult. So we're going to take all the public debt, we're going to convert it into US dollars, add it with the US dollars, and with that money is going to be, we're going to create a new central bank for both Canada and the United States, and we're going to issue a new currency called the UE. U dot universal E dot exchange U dot UE. So a new Imperial, the Imperial Republic Bank. The Imperial Republic Bank, we're going to issue this new currency, which is going to have the value of the US dollar. So that of course is gonna be the UE, the universal exchange unit. The UE is gonna have the value of the US dollar. The UE is gonna have the value of the US dollar. Right, the UE, U dot universal exchange unit. With that money we're gonna create, without implementing the DRT, with that new currency, we're going to be able to, and the implementation of my DRTT, we're going to be able to rebuild the infrastructure of the North American Collective, build more bridges, build, of course, the Imperial Republik's Coliseum. We're going to get rid of the border, fuse the RCMP and the FBI. We're going to fuse the RCMP and the FBI. We're going to fuse the RCMP and the FBI. We're going to correlate this new structure, and we're going to, of course, create a DGA, Dancing Goddess Army, the Imperial Integrated Dance League, aka parallel with the Dragon Army, aka the Imperial SSD, Legion, public-private partnership, both, as the DRT is going to require mass public-private partnership. I need my brother citizen Bill Gates of BlackRock, and Blackstone, our two financial tradition would differed. It takes public and private financial institutions and organizations, and we're going to get rid of the border. We're going to create a central bank, national central bank, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to create this massive central bank, and of course Canada and the United States, we're going to mass finance citizens fitness by working on training, exercising, credit the UEs for my UEs to do the workout training program system, and we're going to finance the building of those 44 underground subterranean city tunnels, the city tunnels inspired by the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, and paradoxically by I'm no fan of Hamas, but supposedly they built hundreds of kilometers of tunnels underneath Gaza, and of course underneath Gaza they built mass tunnels, and of course they also built underground the subterranean Montreal City village, the Winter Village it's called, and of course we're gonna finance fitness, intra-imperial of the 63 tourism to establish a mass speeder corridor, because it does great for the wellness. So we're going to do lots of rehabilitation, the criminal population. Of course, if they have 44 conviction in the past 11 years, 44 conviction, that's a bit much. Unless they stole 44 apples each time they got arrested, because they got an issue, they steal a banana each time, and then they got some other mentals, and yes, I guess we can organize our brothers and sisters and police to bring those people a banana if there's a percentage, just like there's a percentage of Aspies who can't help themselves to steal once a week or every day, to just steal one banana because it's just something mental, right? I guess we're gonna have to knock that person at a certain hour before it goes to the store. Here's the banana, don't need to go steal it, or the bread or whatever, you know what I mean. Not just the food security, but it's just because there are people who are this kleptomania, they just can't help but take something from wherever they go, But I'm referring, of course, if you stole millions or billions, or if you stole champagne or Mercedes Benzes or whatever, that's different. So we got to discern injustice. In other words, we got to discern injustice, and we will discern and be benevolent and punishing, be two-headed, two-faced, like one for benevolence and one for punishing. I guess we gotta, not in the negative sense, but it's like that pi symbol, the circumference of the circle. So that's the DRT. We're gonna create the North American Criminal Rehabilitation Act, just as I sing that rock and roll for the boys and girls in blue, and our brothers and sisters in uniform for the Dragon Army Cadence and boys and girls in blue, and I also sing that rock and roll for my brothers and sisters who take their second, third, fourth chances, and you do your criminal rehabilitation. And thus you do your criminal rehabilitation, and that is just doing your criminal rehabilitation, and that's just where we empty with that, and you do your criminal rehabilitation, and that's that rock and roll. So pledge your allegiance to our family. And I gotta say that I have a little bit of concern, because since August 1st, unfortunately, we're labeled by the United States as an extraordinary and unusual threat and that was the justification of augmenting the tariffs on Canada. Eh? We got those tariffs augmented on August 1st, and that concerns me. And the official doctrine also of the White House is that due to, of course, our security forces, police forces, I guess mostly reference to the RCMP, which is the equivalent of the FBI and CSIS, and of course, it's stated there in black and white, the official motive why they increased tariffs on Canada on the 1st of August. And although I predicted the World War III scenario, international conflagration, geopolitics, I gotta say that I did not predict that Canadian-US relations will deteriorate. So this has been new for me as well, especially these past 4 months with the growing trade war with Canada. Let's admit it, 75%, more than 3/4 of our goods are going to the United States. Let's face it, we are vulnerable. We gotta say, right? We gotta say, although I've been challenging Donald Trump since 2018, and it's not the way to invite us, Donald Trump, to join the United States. And I guess in many ways, me with one finger, one hand, I show the finger to Trump, and I knock him out with a boxing in a sportsman-like way, because I'm a democratic Republican, pro-labor, love universal revolutionary, etc. But with the other hand, we embrace our American brothers and sisters fully. So we got a paradox, and my way to fuse best the Imperial Democratic Republic, private partnership to mass rehabilitate the population, finance healthcare, and construction workers rock and roll. Who's gonna build more social housing? And we need to build total integration with the police security forces, and we need to establish mass webcams where citizens can, of course, monitor the public sphere, and of course we can build mass buildings for social housing where people are encouraged to fitness, to travel, and to volunteering, to be of service, and integrated, and across our empire to have citizens where can monitor everything that's coming in and out, everything that's traveling across the highways, the trucks, the truckers, and to be totally fully integrated in the empire via the CIT, citizen integration theory as well, and Dragon, Total 911, Dragon Army protocols. The Total 911 Dragon Army protocols. The Total 911 Dragon Army protocols. For total security, total service, total defense, and the DRT is the solution. Pledge your allegiance or something similar, because we're on the verge of a public financial collapse, both Canada and the United States. So this creation of a UA will propel us for total benevolent dominance and dominion of the world in a bipolar manner, not to be confused with a psychiatric, psychological sense. Bipolarity in a geopolitical sense, because I'm a geopolitical theorist, thinker, analyst, and of course, strategist. So that is just something which we have to appellate in confluence, and we're gonna get on that drill here. I'm gonna get it on that for them to get it on the go, and bienvenue. Get it on the go, bienvenue. So we gotta get it on the drill here. I'm gonna let the real fitness guys get their fitness on. The real fitness, not just real fitness. Get their act together there. A little bit of that fitness, That is something which we have to get doing with that, and gotta get on that loving, and that's the Dragon Army, I guess. Love to see that fitness and a little bit of that. Give me a little bit of that. Thank you in French, merci. We're gonna switch to French because we're not here about for province, and they're doing a little bit of that running there. I guess they're doing a little bit of that good. That's something that they're doing there, something which always gotta be on the remissive side. And see, we got the motto of Montreal here. Concordia Salus, that's the motto of Montreal. Concordia Salus, that's Latin for wellness, well-being through harmony, or harmony through well-being. Concordia Salus, it's Latin, and as of course could be one of our mottos for the empire, through joy, strength, fitness, and of course our empire will have a Latin, more English mottos, of course, for the just, the brave, the free, the loving. For the just, the brave, the free, the strong, the loving, because it's not just strong and free, right? But we're gonna get it for the strong, the free, the brave, the loving, and that is just how we gotta build it up. And I got out of the way. My fellow citizens said, hey, to the right. I said, I'm gonna take it on the right side, and they said, thank you. And I said, you're welcome. That's how it should be, myself and the others. And I love seeing that fitness and getting those bodies up, because I do it 24/7, and it's something in which we got to get it on the go, and we got to get a little bit of that transactional well-being and wellness, the naturalness where we are, of course, appellated and integrated to be, and for the well-being, of course, of our dimensions, and of course the well-being of our citizens and well-being of myself and others, pledge allegiance, the DRT. And it alarms me that we have reached this geopolitical position where we are for the first time. I did not predict this. This is new for me, that we are designated as unusual and extraordinary threat. And although not that much fentanyl is crossing, and more are designated this fentanyl as an actual fentanyl, I don't think it's a drug. I think it's more and more a bioweapon, to be honest, because it doesn't make sense. You would like the person to keep buying, right? To be the dealers have an interest for the person not to die, but to keep buying every day, every week, to buy the drug. But if people are dying from fentanyl, then it doesn't make sense if there's so much overdose. Right? You feel what I'm saying? You understand probably? So more and more I'm seeing this fentanyl is actually like a bioweapon, a covert bioweapon, a covert bioweapon, a covert bioweapon, a covert bioweapon. Covert, C-O-V-E-R-T. It's possible. Hey, listen, it's possible that COVID was that. I don't know for sure. I know that before COVID I had it myself, but I think it was snakes who transmitted. I can't be sure. What I know for sure is what I predicted in 2019, and I created that workout training program system and the DRT, the debt refusion theory, which I just discussed now, for the creation of the UE and all my other theories, protocols, for the creation of the two public-private partnership institutions and the fusion of Canada and the United States into the Imperial Republic, from Hawk Island, Montreal to be the co-capital with Washington, but Montreal, Hawk Island to become another headquarters of our Imperial military security apparatus, the Dragon Army, for total security, service and defense, and integrating the RCMP and the FBI, and taking a step toward the protocols, of course, to further exacerbate and, of course, get that total security, service and defense, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, see like those, my fellow citizens who are jogging, mass finance citizens to jog, and we take the tech with the tech giants to have tracking devices and citizens to see who's working on training and exercising mass cooperation, from the universities, public-private partnership, to mass finance, the UE, and mass finance this, public-private partnership, mass public imperial strategy for total BDD, and of course, my Milan, because the RCMP has warned us for years, they did warn us for years, The RCMP warned us, let's be honest, for years and years and years, they've been sounding the alarm. They said, hey, listen, we have a growing transnational domestic problem. For years and years and years, the RCMP warned us, and they said more and more transnational criminal syndicates are, of course, organizing in Canada, and they are establishing themselves in Canada. For years and years and years, they have warned us. And especially, the alarm was also sounded about more than 4 years ago, in about the late 2020s, early 2021. So 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, that we have a growing transnational criminal syndicates. And it happened that last year, the RCMP, what had happened is that they seized the biggest ever lab in Canadian history, super lab, and supposedly 95 million doses of fentanyl were seized. 95 million doses of fentanyl. That would have been possible to kill the population of Canada twice over. And of course, in the August 1st dictum from the White House and the justification to increase tariffs, one of the motives was that due to growing domestic production in Canada, and that are supposedly our police forces didn't coordinate, and the lack of coordination with U.S. forces. Now, cooperation and coordination, they're linked, but those were the words. Those were the words. Just gonna my belt went down a bit on the valley here. So we've been warned also for years that a growing transnational criminal syndicate is shaking root in Canada. And what happened last year? October 25th. October 25th. October 25th. October 25th. What happened? October 25th is, of course, this operation. October 25th, that's what happened. October 25th. That is what has happened. October 25th, the October 25th era or date is when the RCMP seized the biggest ever drug lab in Canadian history just before Trump got re-elected. A few months later, August 1st, 20 days ago, the tariffs get increased on Canada. What is the motive? That our police forces, security forces did not coordinate, and they state that in 2025, the amount of fentanyl which crossed the U.S. into the U.S. from Canada has tripled, and potentially said it could have killed 16 million Americans. So the fact that it has increased, of course, there's certain validity there. Not that it crosses so much, but the fact that it's so potent and dangerous, fentanyl. You all know? And the truth is that domestically, the RCMP, our police forces, national police forces, they warned us. And last year, 25th of October, 2024, just a few months ago, not even a year yet, they seized the biggest ever lab in Canadian history. So you get what I'm saying. We're in danger. The truth is that growing transnational criminal syndicates have taken root in the past 10 years, since 2015, according to the RCMP, more and more. And just last year, they have the proof, and they had seized. See, that's Outremont, the other mountain. Just gonna do some sun salutations and go. So pledge your allegiance, legions. It's time, of course, for the Dragon Army, and of course we got that. I'm worried. Now listen, when I talk about it, I get shivers, goosebumps. I get goosebumps. You know, so I get those goosebumps, and I'm worried. I'm concerned. I'm alarmed also, because listen, is it a bioweapon, this fentanyl? How come it's affecting North America so much? Other regions do not seem to be affected. How's Europe? Fentanyl. How's Europe and fentanyl? It seems that Europe and North America are hit hard. Now, French, because we're in la belle province, so we need, of course, to get a little bit of that French with it. Because we got to get a little bit of that French, and that is something which we got to do. Voilà, en français maintenant, on descend de la montagne pour le faire, de la montagne pour descendre. Bien sûr, on est rentré par ici. Ça, c'est la montagne, non. Puis le soleil, bien sûr, on s'en va par l'autre bord, le soleil, pour le faire des inventions, pour les faire qui sont à la course, bien sûr. Puis on fait du dynamisme pour faire l'entraînement physique. Fait qu'on s'en va, bien sûr, de la course pour le faire ensemble, de la faire, d'avoir, bien sûr, le quotidien pour être en sécurité. Ici, on arrête un peu. On va attendre s'il passe, juste pour traverser en sécurité. Fait on avance, on recule, bien sûr, pour le faire, de l'affaire, bien sûr, pour le faire, de la situation, bien sûr, pour le faire, qu'on traverse en sécurité, bien sûr, pour l'être ici ensemble dans ce point de convergence où que je vous discute maintenant en français, parce que c'est le grand compromis linguistique, bien sûr, qu'on a fait de la couple d'années, mais c'est sûr qu'on a fait le grand compromis linguistique pour l'être, bien sûr. Fait que, applaudissements, salutations à ceux, bien sûr, qui sont allés, vous êtes rentrés dans la forêt. Faites attention avec prudence pour le faire dans la forêt, bien sûr, comme des extraterrestres. C'est comme ça qu'on est un peu, nous, les aspis, hein? Les Aspergers comme moi, hein, un peu comme des extraterrestres, un peu dans votre monde, mais c'est notre monde. Je veux dire, quand c'est vis-à-vis vous, les neurotypiques, puis c'est sûr que j'ai pas d'antagonisme, j'ai pas de relation négative envers vous, là. C'est juste que nous, il faut se comprendre qu'on est différents. On regarde le monde d'une autre manière. Fait que la manière, nous, qu'on voit le monde, c'est un petit peu différent. Fait que c'est de cette manière-là, bien sûr, qu'on voit le monde dans ce point de circonstance, qu'on aille, bien sûr, dans ce point de circonstance, qu'on fasse, bien sûr, dans ce point du quotidien, bien sûr, qu'on ait, bien sûr, d'avoir de la situation, bien sûr, qu'on ait de l'avoir, bien sûr, une situation, hein, à vivre ensemble, bien sûr, pour être dans ce point de concordance où qu'on vit, bien sûr, dans l'être, bien sûr, dans ce point de concordance. We gotta get it, of course, on the go. And c'est ça, bien sûr, qu'il faut qu'on fasse pour la validation, bien sûr, qu'il faut qu'on aille dans ce point de concordance, bien sûr, pour être, bien sûr, dans ce point de concordance, pour être vis-à-vis vous, vis-à-vis nous, bien sûr. C'est quelque chose, bien sûr, qu'il faut qu'on voie vis-à-vis tout l'ensemble de qu'est-ce qu'on est ensemble en tant que neurodivergent, bien sûr. Puis en tant que neurodivergent, bien sûr, c'est quelque chose qu'on aille, bien sûr, ensemble, vis-à-vis, à bâtir, bien sûr, le principal que la République républicaine, bien sûr, qu'on est bien sûr ensemble. C'est quelque chose qu'on doit avoir vis-à-vis notre compétence, puis non. C'est peut-être bizarre, là, parce que des fois, on est bizarre et étrange, tu sais, les Aspergers. Donc, c'est dans cette situation, bien sûr, qu'on est, bien sûr, un peu bizarre dans cette situation d'avoir du soutien, c'est sûr que on a un soutien, bien sûr, un peu, pour avoir du soutien, bien sûr, dans le temps d'avoir un soutien, bien sûr, dans ce point de compromis, d'être, bien sûr, d'avoir des choses comme ça. Puis c'est sûr qu'avec l'Asperger, ça n'a pas été facile, ça a été toute une lutte, mais moi, ça faisait, bien sûr, des années, bien sûr, qu'on me l'avait dit, qu'on me l'avait mentionné, puis des gens qui ont de l'expérience dans le service de la santé, puis des connaissances dans le service de la santé ou dans d'autres choses, bien sûr, dans le service de la santé, bien sûr, pour avoir là, ces points de contingence, pour l'être, bien sûr, intelligence, qu'on a une autre intelligence, mais pas quand ça vient au savoir du quotidien, du social, tu sais, les communications sociales, les normes non écrites, c'est plus difficile pour les aspis, vous comprenez? Fait que c'est quand même, il faut que je fasse du travail constamment, puis on n'est pas une grosse population, hein? C'est moins d'1%, moins de la moitié d'un pourcentage, 0,44%. On a ces intérêts obsessifs, puis la manière qu'on communique, des fois, ça peut être un peu intellectuel, de manière plus sophistiquée, plus dans la manière plus intellectuelle, sophistiquée, un peu académique. Des fois, ça dépend de qu'est-ce qu'on discute, c'est bien sûr, mais on manque de savoir, bien sûr, les normes non écrites de la société. On manque souvent ces normes non écrites de la société, bien sûr, quand on discute. Je vais vous donner un exemple. Tu sais, l'espace personnel de 2-3 pieds, là, tu sais, c'est une distance comme d'à peu près ici à l'autre ligne, tu sais, quand on discute, ou peut-être ça. Mais nous, les aspis, on va être proche de 2-3 pouces. On va s'approcher. Fait que maintenant, j'y travaille dessus. Je dois toujours prendre une distance. Parce que c'est sûr que... tu sais, avec l'Asperger, c'est quelque chose de bien sûr qu'on sait pas, on n'est pas toujours... On a de la misère dans certaines choses, vous comprenez, les Asperger, c'est... Puis surtout, les 3 problèmes qui nous rencontrent, c'est le manque d'amis. Le manque d'amis, moi, j'ai une solution, hein. Pas perdre votre temps, perdre pas le mien. Des amis avec bénéfice seulement, sinon, pour soutenir mon rêve, qui est fondamentalement un appel à un partenariat public-privé, bien sûr, en tant qu'artiste, athlète, philosophe, analyste théoricien en géopolitique, c'est quelque chose, bien sûr, que moi-même, je fais intégralement de la société pour vivre, bien sûr, pour faire un bon stand le plus que je puisse, bien sûr, pour en avoir de la situation, bien sûr, où que je me rends compte, où je me suis rendu compte, j'ai accepté finalement, il y a 3 ans et demi, que j'ai l'Asperger, parce que, comme j'ai dit, ça fait comme 8-9 ans, comme l'avait dit, plusieurs personnes différentes, citoyens, concitoyennes, comme l'avait mentionné, tu sais que tu as l'Asperger, c'était sur le spectre de l'autisme, qu'on appelle l'autisme non fonctionnel, puis j'ai jamais voulu accepter ça, parce que c'est quand même, tu sais, c'est quand même un stigme encore. Il y a eu beaucoup de progrès vis-à-vis de l'Asperger, d'une démystification, puis c'est pas une maladie, encore une fois. C'est pas une maladie, hein. C'est ça qu'il faut comprendre, puis je l'ai entendu, parce que j'ai eu beaucoup de travail, mais le problème chez les Asperger, c'est garder le travail. Tu sais, garder le travail, parce que quand on communique, des fois, on peut être direct aussi, puis on peut offenser des fois, mais sans vouloir offenser, tu sais. On veut pas vraiment offenser, mais on va dire des choses directement, puis ça peut blesser quelqu'un, puis pas parce qu'on a la volonté de le faire, bien sûr, de blesser, bien sûr, quelqu'un, c'est juste parce que la manière qu'on est nous-mêmes, c'est de cette manière, bien sûr, qu'on existe en tant que neurodivergent, hein, en tant qu'Asperger, en faisant partie d'une petite minorité. Il n'y en a pas bien, il n'y en a pas beaucoup. Il y en a qui ne savent même pas c'est quoi, souvent, ils ne savent même pas c'est quoi les citoyens quand je leur parle, c'est quoi l'Asperger, ils ne savent même pas c'est quoi. C'est une condition de neurodivergence, notre cerveau, il y a certaines mutations au niveau microscopique, donc nous, on voit le monde différemment, puis on a de la misère dans les normes non écrites de la société, la manière qu'on communique, ça peut être un peu étrange, bizarre, et c'est juste comprendre un peu. Moi, j'ai pas besoin de beaucoup de soutien. Je suis un individu souverain, citoyen indépendant, citoyen souverain, mais qui a l'Asperger, mais j'ai pas besoin de beaucoup de soutien. Beaucoup de soutien moi-même. C'est sûr qu'à cause de ces intérêts spéciaux qui nous préoccupent la plupart de notre temps, moi j'ai mes routines, hein? J'ai mes routines rituelles, l'entraînement physique que je préfère, c'est la danse. Dragon Arc-en-Ciel, je fais aussi partie de la communauté LGBTQ, je suis dans libre depuis des années, je suis androgyne pansexuel, je me cache pas, c'est pas quelque chose que je me cache, ça fait longtemps que je suis ouvert, plus que 7 ans bien sûr, puis je suis pas parfait, j'adore le rock'n'roll, je veux j'en chanter, j'en compose des chansons, du rock'n'roll au quotidien, si vous en voulez, venez me voir, la danse, la chorégraphie, venez me voir, la géopolitique, venez me voir, c'est mes intérêts spéciaux, puis c'est là que nous, on est à la maison, on est super concentré, super intense, quand on s'engage, quand on travaille dans ces choses-là, puis bien sûr, j'ai fait beaucoup de travail vis-à-vis surtout de la géopolitique, puis je dois le dire, je fais mention toujours dans mes vidéos que moi-même, j'ai prévu la situation actuelle depuis 2019, en octobre 2019, j'ai prévu la situation actuelle qui se déroule en ce moment en 2019. Là. En octobre, j'avais prévu qu'il y aura une conflagration internationale. J'avais prévu qu'il y aura une conflagration internationale international. Fait qu'ayant prévu qu'il y a une conflagration internationale dans ce point de situation qu'on est rendu maintenant, j'ai quand même créé un système d'entraînement physique aussi vis-à-vis en 2019 que moi-même j'ai performé plus que 372 sessions moi-même, tu sais. 372 sessions, bien sûr. 372 sessions. Bien sûr, c'est la manière, bien sûr, que je dois viser, bien sûr, à avoir ce point de différence. Fait qu'on est différent. Fait que dans le milieu de travail, c'est problématique parce que le taux de chômage est à 80%. Hein. Chez les ASPI, chez nous, on constitue une petite minorité, c'est 4 sur 5. Là, il faut travailler là-dessus. 80%, c'est 11 fois plus que vous. Hein. Fait que moi, je célèbre maintenant 8 ans depuis que j'ai sorti ma dépression, puis à peu près 3 ans et demi que j'ai accepté, bien sûr, que j'ai l'Asperger's. Et bien sûr, encore une fois, quand j'ai dit, bien sûr, que ça a survécu la dépression et le suicide, j'ai traversé le Canada en 2017 de côte à côte. C'est quelque chose qui touche les Asperger's beaucoup. Le suicide, bien sûr, le taux de suicide puis le taux de sans-emploi, c'est 9 fois plus le taux de suicide puis de dépression. Puis, bien sûr, les autres sources, c'est 9 fois plus. Puis 11 fois plus. Fait que moi, la solution, c'est des amis avec bénéfice seulement. Je veux pas perdre votre temps, puis des palmiers. Soutenez cordialement et avec souplesse l'implémentation, puis avec dynamisme. Hein. Il faut qu'on se fusionne avec les États-Unis. De ma manière, mieux. Moi, je me fais boxer avec Donald Trump depuis 2018. Je le fais appel qui me combat dans un combat de boxe, mais quand même, c'est sérieux parce qu'on dépend du marché américain. Fait qu'il faut faire l'implémentation de la DRT pour la TRD, je veux dire, TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, pour qu'on fasse la création d'une unité d'échange universelle, U.unité, point échange, point universel. Ça, bien sûr, c'est les solutions géopolitiques que je mets sur la table vis-à-vis, bien sûr, tous les problèmes qui se trouvent maintenant, ou d'où qu'on est rendu maintenant avec les problèmes qui existent. Puis en tenant compte que j'ai prévu la situation qui se déroule en ce moment, il faut qu'on fasse l'implémentation de la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Pour, comme ils ont fait en Europe, on va faire la création d'une nouvelle monnaie, on va enlever la frontière, on va faire le fusionnement de la GRC avec la FBI, puis bien sûr, on va financer les gens à l'entraînement physique, faire beaucoup de bien par un partenariat public-privé, soutenir mon rêve, qui se manifeste comme le royaume de la disque.